just in time for Capricorn season. Julianne and I have done a compilation of Capricorn through the houses. This is a timeless video that you can check out for where you have Capricorn in your chart. You can check by your rising sign, or if you have Placidus and you know another house system and your houses don't follow the typical rising sign breakdown, you can also just check which house you have Capricorn in. We put together the best of what main things came to our mind, but there are so many variations and so many examples. So we would love to hear from you. How does this show up in your life? How do you feel about the Capricorn part of your chart? Do you feel like you're mastering that area of life? Do you feel like you have a natural born mastery in that part of your life? Let us know. If you would like readings from either of us, that will be linked below. But it's so much fun chatting with you in the comments. And thank you for just checking out this video. Happy Capricorn season.
Oh man, what am I going to stand on? And now that it's been 5-10 years, it's like slow growth, but it is very stable. It is like, and I would prefer that to like a rickety building. Okay, hello. My name is Julianne. I'm here with Jen, and we are both astrologers. We're both astrologers of, I don't know if completely, Jen, you would say, the evolutionary astrology perspective. Probably not, actually. I'm definitely more on the evolutionary side, but that's where we met, within the School of Evolutionary Astrology. And we're here today to talk about Capricorn together. Jen is like the ultimate Capricorn ever. So
We both are. Capricorn through the houses. I'm so excited to do this with Julianne. We both have very strong Capricorn. I think your Jupiter.
Surprise to me to hear that. Yeah.
It's just ever growing, but we have definitely bonded on that. We started training around the same time professionally, and I have had a lot of other types of influence other than evolutionary astrology, but I would say that is started filtering into my analysis of the planets before I even took a course, and that's why I decided to lean into it, because it offers such a rich context for how to approach some of this energy in our lives. Julianne is someone that just always lights me up from day one in our study groups together, chatting about astrology. It's just on fire, and it's so exciting to be able to sit down and go deeper into what's sometimes a challenging topic. I know for myself, when I saw Capricorn placements and Capricorn in the 5th house as a beginner astrologer, I sank a little. I was like, oh, God, no wonder I could be so heavy sometimes. But there are so many gifts with Capricorn, and that's what I'm really excited to point out as far as something I've tried to focus on over the years.
Yeah. You know, I think consciously, unconsciously, everyone's kind of been through the ringer with the Pluto transit that we've been through, of Capricorn, Pluto going through Capricorn since 2008, really up until just last year. And I think that Pluto interpretation is definitely, hinges on the evolutionary side. Would you agree? Like, I don't know how much emphasis, like the depth of the dark night of the soul essentially is very much so a Pluto transit for an individual, for also just our collective consciousness of what is Capricorn. Like, because Pluto, anywhere it goes, right, is the total death and rebirth, but it's also just the total power. Like, there's so much there, again, I don't know if how does your interpretation of Pluto, how has it changed over the last few years of your studies?
Well, one thing that is, I think, really relevant from my perspective is that I went through Pluto on my Mars in Capricorn for the 3 years that I have been trying to build this astrology.
Oh, wow. I just got chills. That's cool.
And
that's very cool.
And I have had Pluto hit every personal planet, either conjunct or square, since I was born. And now I'm getting into, it's going to move into the conjunct Mars was the last point it will actually conjunct. And now I'm going to get into the second half of those separating aspects. So I have a heavy experience with Pluto, and I feel that evolutionary astrology has given me much more of a rich, deeper context of what Pluto's all about. And a lot of other astrology hits the 5 important points, but to really talk about Pluto from I've heard this from a lot of astrologers, Astrolata and Nadia Shah. Once you go through a Pluto transit as an astrologer, you can talk about it then. But you
Mm.
can't learn about it from textbooks in typical
Oh my God.
astrology and talk about it in depth. And that's what evolutionary astrology provides, is that if you have not yet had a really challenging Pluto journey, you might be able to get more insight from the depths that evolutionary perspective adds.
Oh my gosh, completely. And I just, I realize I'm sitting here across from you as a Cancer sun. I've had my own Pluto oppositions, obviously, like to my sun and my Mercury, but I'm only going through a Pluto square like now in the next year, my early degree Taurus moon being squared by Pluto early Aquarius, but my obviously anyway, and then I had Pluto go over my Jupiter, but that was, in the middle degrees, so earlier like 2017.
You've had a good dose.
Yeah, I've had my own dose,
Yeah.
and I think that's where this idea of the Pluto polarity point really landed for me, being a Cancer. That's another teaching in evolutionary astrology, which is, has its own interesting place. It's kind of a quiet teaching in evolutionary astrology about the Pluto polarity point, which basically says you must integrate the opposite point of where Pluto is. In order to actually have the complete Pluto experience, you need to integrate Pluto through its opposite, like wherever it is, its opposite sign is actually the only place you're going to be able to really allow it to have its full effect. So like since 2008, it's been Cancer, and we can see how like the emotions, like I remember that term emotional labor when I learned that term for the first time, right? Like that was like in the last 10 years, and I was like, oh yeah, like that's right.
That's a really cool perspective. The
Yeah.
opposition is not one that I have yet experienced. So
Will you?
that I won't. And so that's another layer where
Yeah,
you
look
and
at us.
I is like
Yeah.
same, but really
Same but
balancing
different.
each other out in some of our
Yeah.
perspectives. And the tension from an opposition, I think, is as far as a Pluto transit, as the
Mm,
squares, the conjunctions, the oppositions,
yeah.
that you're gonna feel it.
Yeah, and I think that brings me to something we were just talking about before we were recording, which is like the point of astrology is that choice. And I would love you to repeat what your motto is, if you are so available
I
to
would
do
love
that.
to. Yeah, the
Um,
motto that I put on my website is understand the energies at play to clarify choice each day. We are in our quick discussion before getting on this call. It was how passionate we both are about knowing that this is a choice to
yeah,
play with these energies, to understand them. It helps for me, it helps validate what I'm already feeling. And then
yeah,
I can take action because
yeah,
sometimes the watery worlds of emotions from an internal perspective, it's hard to get objective understanding of ourselves, and that's what astrology offers.
yeah, absolutely. And it's truly, in my experience, at these crazy points, like the square, like the opposition, like a Pluto transit, at which point you're literally woken up, and maybe you need to be woken up like 4 times throughout a Pluto transit. But it's like, yeah, you're woken up and you realize that you do have the choice. What's that reaction?
Yeah, I just Pluto on my Capricorn and Mars 28 degrees just smashed me down. Like I
Oh
felt like I was
no.
asleep almost for 3 years,
Yeah.
like a death waking up experience. There was so much of a
Oh my
feeling of
God.
an old self dying, and so the waking up is happening now. The term waking up, I feel like it's so overused and sometimes in the wrong or
Sure.
derogatory context. And
Mm,
so
oh,
I just
interesting.
want to bring attention to that my perspective is about expanding awareness of something. And that's all it
Mm,
is. Because I think people are using that term in a negative, harsh way towards others sometimes. And I feel
wow.
sensitive about that.
That's really beautiful. I really appreciate that because I think my internal, like the way I've been talking to myself about it was very much so like, oh yeah, I wasn't alive until like 2020. But I think that's far more compassionate. It's more true. It's more real to the reality of love and the reality of like the fact that we do have that choice is a testament to we are unbounded on the deepest level possible, like of the soul or of something of essence. Like these are not things that are bound by planets in the same way that like our material, our physical, our fleshy reality is. I mean, that's kind of another conversation. But the interesting thing is like we're talking about Capricorn here, which is that edge. It is solid, it is reliable, but it's also it moves, right? And like that is like the skeleton and the osteopathy. Like that's where I think of you. I'm like, oh yeah, Jen is just living this Capricorn truth and like understanding what stability actually mechanically looks like in a human because you know, we could sit and talk about how terrible the last, like how awful and challenging, traumatic it's been to have that Pluto in Capricorn transit, and how, you know, the structures of work and institutions and capitalism, etc. You know, we want to work with that, but on a more like essential level here, like we have Capricorn in our bones all the time. Capricorn is the bones, and it's the structure that it, just because Pluto went there, and, you know, all of our focus was on how challenging that Capricorn stuff was. There is an essential nature of Capricorn. There is a reason, there's a boundary of what is real and what is not, what you can see, what cannot, what can grow, and then what is going to be kind of in the transpersonal psychological imagination, right? You have that then, like Neptune, Uranus, all these planets that go after Saturn. So anyway, that's that. Basically, that's kind of why I love we're talking about Saturn, because you can go all these different ways, but Saturn brings it in. It's like, no, we like talking about astrology. Like, anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Saturn
yeah.
is the bones. And I love that before that you said that, you know, it's about feeling alive when we go through these transits. Ultimately,
Mm,
that's what the result is. And Capricorn can feel so slow
mm.
and dragging, but there's richness in that reconstruction process that Capricorn and Saturn offer. And the
Wow, that's
bones.
beautiful.
I just did a course on osteoporosis, and it got that
Whoa,
bone remodeling in my mind about
nice.
bones are a hard structure in our body, but they are also soft tissue and they remodel. And it's really important to have the bone both broken down and remodeled with stress. And that's another thing that's similar to Capricorn, is that we need stress to get stronger and to have dense bones. And that's what some of this presentation is going to be about.
Oh no, sorry. Wait, say more. What kind of stress?
Just as a side note, because I think this is helpful for everyone, if we do on the body when it comes to bone density, if we do TheraBand exercises and body weight resistance, that has the chance to maintain bone density, but we will never gain more bone density. So if you're already at a deficit, that's not enough. You need weight. And when it comes to
Oh,
life, that's what a Saturn transit or Capricorn in a certain part of our charts can feel like, is that there is a weight. There's a
wow.
that I have the image of the Mayim feeling for the walls, that there's
Mm,
a no escape of looking at what the parameters are, what healthy function and parameters are. And there's a responsibility in that that gives us so much ability to do everything in our lives. And people with strong Capricorn, they innately know the basics. And so bone health to compare would be having the right nutrition and doing that exercise easily without thinking about it being work. And that's what
mm,
Capricorns do. They just do
mm.
it. And then they can build whatever else they want in their charts, because this comes naturally to just do the basics to create the foundation.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
But it can feel
interesting.
like a cage to people. Like that's the mind
Mm,
part. Like when we're working on that, it feels like we're stuck or we're locked in that process for a little while. 3 years if Saturn's transiting through a part of your chart.
so I have Jupiter in Capricorn, and so I'm like, I'm here trying to expand my bones all the time, and it's like, well, okay, like let it give it some time, just chill out a little bit. Um,
Yeah, that's a
but
good
there's,
point. And just to emphasize rest, because that was in the osteoporosis course too, is that
mm,
you cannot just keep building. And that's the slow part of Capricorn. We do need to take a break from that. And that's part of what's going to get better building and not too much breakdown. So, yeah.
yeah. It's I think like holding the right type of tension. This is something I there's a creator on Instagram who I really like called the Yeshuani. I haven't actually told you about her yet. I don't know if you know her, but she talks a lot about like mechanics of reality and systems, and she talks a lot about when you are like stressed about something, just allowing yourself to hold the space and know that you can contain it. Like you don't like you can make an informed decision, but you can also just like yeah, what I've taken away from what she says is that there's never a right decision. There's just a right commitment. There's a right way to say yes, and there's a right way to say no, and there's a right way to kind of keep moving forward and allow the systems and structures to help you. The other thing that I really, this is different now, but that I love to think about with Capricorn and with Saturn is that it is the way that you see reality, like where Saturn is in your chart, and definitely influenced like the Capricorn house in your chart is going to be like the way that reality literally structurally looks for you. Like if you think about your life as a fractal equation that just kind of is keeping going everywhere you look, like it's just Saturn. So like the way I see reality is not going to be the same way as you see reality, just because my Saturn is in Aries and your Saturn is in Libra, another opposition we have.
I actually haven't thought about that as the lens of our structured reality, where the moon can be our emotional lens and how that filters the world. Yet Saturn is that I see the yellow in grass and you might see the green in grass.
That's exactly, yeah. It's not much about like where you have to take responsibility and where you need to grow. It's just like, no, this is literally how reality is structured for you. Like this is where you don't, of course, Saturn is where we're doing our lessons of maturing over time. It's also where you have the capacity to build strength. It's where you have the capacity to see that things end and they begin. It makes me think about then the Capricorn house is somewhere where you have a structure that can bear weight, right? Like, and I think that's what we want to talk about in the horoscopes in a little bit, right? That Capricorn house. And I really like that we're talking about it in these positive terms, because I really need to retrain my brain to see it as such. You know what I mean? You think a lot about heaviness, like you talked about in the beginning. The idea of a crystal is very interesting to me because it has that fractal signature that can be then, right? Like if it's given the right conditions, it will just recreate itself. And that then goes back to that piece of choice and attention. Are you choosing the right crystal? Are you choosing the right fractal pattern to keep going? Because it should be naturally reoccurring. In that sense, Capricorn wants to be very sustainable and very mature so that you don't need to keep, putting up a post to like keep a building from falling down that's supposed to fall down. And that's the Capricorn part of our chart, which I think buildings have fallen down in the last 10 years. Like, and we're learning to rebuild right now. And that's kind of where I love that we're talking. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it. Because I feel like even the vocabulary around Capricorn, that area of our chart, it's soil. We have a barren ground to go from now.
We do need that collapse. And I love what you're saying about perspective, because I think this is why we're so passionate about doing this video today, is to reframe how everyone, ourselves, firstly, look at Capricorn. And what I find with the need to transform in Capricorn is that it's that heaviness that we all perceive that can keep us stuck in shame and guilt and the weight of what the Capricorn responsibility is. And then that creates fear and resistance compared to the bow, and then we don't get into this remodeling or change process. And that's what Pluto just did, is that anything that we felt resistant to change because of how much work it's going to take to remodel our society, or whatever other weighted burdens we put on the comforts of staying on the same foundation, Pluto comes through and we have no choice but to rebuild. Really important part to talk about how we might have dread around the responsibility in our lives, or shame around stepping out of responsibility is a really big one that keeps us working when we shouldn't. And that can talk about the Cancer polarity, that you probably have so much more to offer, that we need to rest, we need to nurture, we need to go into that zone to prevent shame and guilt and the burden of work from becoming overbearing to the point that we're not effective anymore.
Yeah.
We're not having fun. Capricorn needs to have a little fun.
Oh my God, Capricorn needs to have so much fun. Capricorn is so long overdue. I have a few Capricorn friends that I'm like, oh my goodness. My thing is because I think I've been in the Cancer polarity for so long, like the last few years, I really felt for my like life circumstances, I really needed to like pull into honestly not having a lot of authority in my life. Like I wanted to rely on other people. I did not it was very easy for me to say no to the systems, to like stop taking, a normal responsibility in life. But I think what grew in me was some resentment for my own abdication of responsibility. Like I do want to grow, right? I do want to mature. And, I'm reaching my Saturn return in a few months. Like it was a blessing to a certain extent that I could choose to say no to a lot of these paradigms and structures. But then in that reality, I didn't have any responsibility anymore. And responsibility is a natural part of human life, right? It's kind of like this core teaching actually of guilt from EA that I really, really love talks about what is natural guilt and then what is learned guilt. Have you heard this one? It's like truly my favorite.
I get the sense. I love that. Yeah, because and that is such a Capricorn thing is that we inherit our Capricorn
It's inherited.
learned
Yeah.
functions
Hmm.
from tradition, from family lineage to a certain degree. So yes,
Yeah.
learned behavior is something I want to talk about a lot with Capricorn.
Yeah. And then there's like the natural guilt, which is just that like you have it can be anything from like you touch a stove and you realize, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like it's a very natural, or you like you hit your little sister when you're a kid and you're like, you see her cry and you're like, actually, I don't want to make you feel that way anymore. Like if you give yourself a minute to like actually take responsibility for a negative action, then you're growing, then you're maturing. And then it's like that's just life. Like that's actually the point.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're taking on your dad's stuff and like what he thinks you should be doing and then you try to take that on yourself, you will go towards disaster, unfortunately. Like there, that maybe not always, but you can inherit maybe anyway, that's another story.
No,
Sometimes families you do have a path with your family path, but in other cases, no.
that's the perfect distinction. And in the Capricorn process, one of the things is that we need to recognize and understand what our actions are and what we're taking away and what we want to change. And it's both so helpful in what you're describing in that we need guilt to understand where those limits are and
Mm-hmm.
shame so that we reset, but becomes a burden when we are, and this is where choice comes in and
Mm-hmm.
observation and understanding what we're dealing with. Because if we understand the information that's being presented to us, then we can actively choose to drop the guilt, choose
Mm-hmm.
differently,
Mm-hmm.
drop into that polarity of Cancer energy and nurture
Mm.
the bleep out of ourselves
Mm.
when we catch ourselves going into those moments
Oof.
of spiraling and we should be different and we should be different than our parents and we should be different than
Yeah.
we should already be in the ideal society that we want to be in,
Yeah.
but Capricorn accepting that slow process of change. It doesn't, the slower the change is in astrology, the better it integrates.
Mm-hmm.
The more we deeply understand it as a reflex rather than
Mm-hmm.
needing to consciously be aware every single moment. So to patience and nurturing with
Interesting.
that change and the shame
Interesting.
and the guilt that come along with
Yeah.
reprogramming ourselves.
I mean, yeah, you just named a very powerful tension of like wanting to be in that conscious choice, but also realizing that you're creating a new system through which you can rely on your immediate like reactions, maybe in a few years once you've actually entrained this new thing. But like, you need to give yourself some grace in that space between being that full new person or like living in that full new setup, and then not like you need to literally come home from work. Like that's what I used to think like, wow, no one should work, and then I was like, oh, then home's going to be very different. Like, like home has to
Yeah.
change if work's going to change. And, for whatever reason, I keep thinking like everything's just going to disappear. It's not. Like nothing's actually going to disappear. There'll always be a Cancer archetype. There will always be a Capricorn archetype. We have to a certain extent let it live through us too. And like a lot of that removal and the reorientation, it is just about seeing things clearly and using time and using space, not as a limited mechanism in the way that I think that's another way we've kind of been socially engineered is to like, it's not enough time, there's not enough this, there's not enough resource, right? Time and resource, these things, Capricorn.
Going to work
Mm.
because one of the things that I have lived and I think I've heard from many people is that lack of structure actually
Hmm.
ends up manifesting more of the depression in Capricorn. So if we lean on the
Interesting.
healthy manifestations of Capricorn, like bone remodeling, needs to keep working towards something. It's the
Right.
mountain goat archetype,
Right.
though the sea goat, and that is a whole other topic. But even though it needs that, it needs movement. It needs slow movement, but stagnation and not going to work and not having structure can
Hmm.
create quite a bit of depression in
Hmm.
wherever Capricorn is in our lives.
Yeah, I recently figured out, not recently, somewhat kind of recently, figured out why. And that's because like if you put yourself into a reality where there's no Saturn, it's just like limitless metaphysics and like you're just like literally in quantum possibility all the time, which I think is technically valid as a, you know, if you want, that's your choice that you're making is to just like rot. Honestly, I can't morally judge you for that because it's a choice. But the reason Capricorn works is because you have specific goals. And I think, again, with this undoing, like I used to think that if I had a goal, then I was going to be this dirty capitalist that, you know, and it's like, no, actually, like I'm allowed to, it's not even a goal in a Capricorn sense. It can be your Venus desire. It can be your, like, it can be your Mars, your passion. It's just like, what's the most fun thing that it is for you to do? And it's not that you have to turn that into work, but it's that you can divide reality by doing that and like literally become that structure. Someone once said to me something about like you have your own internal government that you need to make sure all the like houses are happy with each other and like who's who's in charge. Like I really love that idea of an internal government. And of course I'm a Saturn Aries person, but like the whole structure also lives inside of you, right? These microcosms, macrocosms.
And we are here for an earthly experience. That's what I have to remind myself all
That's
the time.
right.
Is that
That's
it's
right.
nice to think that we, and I think a lot of us in a spiritual mindset that are curious about physics and other energetic connections is that's great, but we're still here for the material physical experience. And after this, we'll get to live in all of that. But there's so much importance in getting into this density and doing the work in the density. And when we are in this more metaphysical realm, bringing it into the density of Capricorn and expressing it, because otherwise we're dissociated to a certain degree from putting things into function. And that's what Capricorn can be such a gift for too, is that do that Pisces stuff, be in the realms of all things and understand that well, but bring it into your Capricorn so that you can put it into concrete material and have something functional for the experience here.
Then it becomes interesting to like see where it's going on in your chart, like when you're looking at this archetypally, because it's like I always love when people have like a Capricorn in the are you kind of like no like Capricorn in the fourth, like very structured, emotional, like that's you know a flip anyway there's it's just and then you get into the rich poetics of people, like how people are, because Capricorn is also about like laws, right? And like how we are, even though it is our individual subjective Saturn thing that I said earlier, it's also how we are coming together and agreeing in a certain zeitgeist of time, whether like it's basically how we argue morals in a certain time, and that's going to shift and change after 30 years, after 60 years, right? Like the laws are going to change, things are not set in stone, but yeah, it's interesting to see how that then plays out, what are your morals, what do you stand on, and then how do you see that in the scope of wider life, right? Like and then I think it's actually from your Capricorn part of your chart that you can then join society and feel like you're actually in like contributing something of your work, because I have Gemini, right? I can say a lot of stuff, but is it ever going to actually like have an influence? Like I need to get on a current. I need to get on a, whether intentionally or just by chance, the air that I'm muttering needs to go manifest and do something. It's, you know, without Capricorn, it's just like a puff of air, you know? So anyway, so it's interesting. It's in my 10th, so I've still no idea what's gonna, or technically 11th, it's in my 11th house cusp. So anyway, I'm thinking about the houses now. I'm thinking about like how it's really interesting, and you do grow into it. I think you do grow into your Capricorn house. I'm very excited to have my Saturn return soon. Very excited to be 29 and 30 here. Because you feel it, and it's that good weight, like that what you were talking about earlier, like the weight that's actually that feels right. Like you've worked for it, you can handle it. You know that it's sustainable. You know that it's not going to crush you, at least just yet, and you know that you'll be anyway. It's all very
There's
exciting.
a level of stability in the world. When I had my Saturn return, I went to school for RMT and found registered massage therapy and found osteopathy. That was the start of me feeling financially secure in the world and having a consistent job. And so those Saturn stages of growth can be challenging. It was a tough period for sure, but each time a new level of feeling like an adult and making it in the world, and there's ease with that.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
completely. And I think you
yeah,
really have to come to that age to understand it. I don't think I would, like 5 years ago when I was 25, I don't think, I honestly didn't have it yet. I was still a little bit far. I was like, you know? And I think some people can, maybe Capricorn heavy people, like, can come into financial stability earlier on in life than others. And then your work might be in a different place. You know what I mean? Like your
maybe
actual,
Taurus heavy people.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at you. That's funny.
Saturn in Taurus maybe is born that way, but the brain doesn't develop full risk assessment until 24 and 28 for females and males.
Oh,
And I think about
interesting.
that when we talk about Saturn because our brains are not developed to care remotely about the risk of being irresponsible. It just doesn't register. So at 24 and 28, we start to like, oh, I think that's when the brain is like, oh, there are
That's so
perimeters
interesting.
to like how fast we should drive and how much money we should spend and
It's
how we
so,
should
I
treat
mean,
people.
that's really funny. I love that. I do have friends who have been making good money like since out of college, like my Capricorn friends actually, like, and I think I know that their work is in other areas of life. I'm just like this, and I wish I knew why. I wish I could say like, oh, it's a past life, like you already, but I just think people have different, and honestly, the only reason I'm saying that is because it's, again, retrain Capricorn to not just be about, it is about financial stability 100%, but it's also about the stability of self, or like the stability of what is actually yours to take responsibility for in this life. Like, what is your way to actually contribute something that's going to speak to not only, like, there's that merging, right, of like the Sagittarius into Capricorn is like what's actually true for you, what's your actual belief, like what is natural for you, and then can you allow that to grow and stabilize into something, or are you just, and with the friends I'm talking about, I do think that it's not necessarily that they're doing jobs that are serving their soul, right? But they're jobs that are keeping them afloat, which maybe that's what they needed. Like in that it's very important. So anyway, you can really like, it's
This,
where it gets, yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to
No, go ahead.
cut you off there. I always like to emphasize that each person's personal chart is going to be
Mm,
vastly different. Where you have
yeah,
planets hitting
yeah,
Saturn, where you
yeah.
have planets in Capricorn or not, the
Hmm.
entire chart needs to be taken into consideration. And that's where, if you feel called to, reach out to Julianne or I for a more in-depth look at what this means for your personal chart. But this is a really
Yes.
quick snapshot to give you a sense of our passion around this topic and how we break down some of these pieces.
Yes. I've been very lucky to not, like, I would say to like not have a ton of pressure to become something that I'm not just yet. And then like as I approach my Saturn return closer and closer, it's kind of emerging naturally, like what I am. And like that's
Yeah.
kind of an undeniable force in a way that if I were, let's say, under more pressure to become somebody from 20 to 30, like I can't say it would have failed, but it just wouldn't feel this easy. Like there's an ease, and it's not the type of ease that I have immediate success right now, but it's the type of ease where I'm like, oh, this is really stable. Like this is something really,
Yeah.
it's very small right now, but it's very stable. Like I really don't need to question it in a way that, like, when I say like first started YouTube or even first quit, the first thing that I've quit so many things in the last 10 years. Like, it's like, oh man, what am I going to stand on? And now that it's been 5, 10 years, it's like slow growth, but it is very stable. It is like, and I would prefer that to
Yeah.
like a rickety
And that,
building. Shall
shall we get
we?
into the
Yeah. First
houses?
house, if you're Capricorn rising, first house.
Yeah. So if you're Capricorn rising, first house, this is an ability to follow structure naturally. I think of the first house as the innate gifts that you have and skills to move forward in the world. For me, everything I describe in astrology, there can be a healthy, productive, helpful satisfied manifestation of it, and then there could be a manifestation that we're dissatisfied with and we need to work on. So at the same time as someone can be self-reliant and have a self authority over their actions and maybe know when the limits or the boundaries are to be followed, but also could make a lot of mistakes in reassessing those limits and boundaries as they go through. There could be an increased risk of internalizing shame and not being productive. So there's a lot of need to do things the right way, but who's deciding what's the right way? And if a Capricorn ascendant is putting too much weight on the other for deciding what's right and wrong and needing approval from that seventh house other person for themselves, then there could be more depression that sinks in and more lack of functionality in that Capricorn realm. If they have an internal authority that probably develops over time and gets stronger and stronger, then they're leaning, and this will depend on personal charts and placements as well, but be able to lean on knowing yourself what is right and being able to take a slow and steady action towards things. Whereas the first house can have a natural inclination to go quickly, to take action without the earthly substance to follow through. So it's a really nice blending to have Capricorn in the first house where Aries occupies, because you have this desire to take action, this very Mars fiery essence to a Capricorn intelligence and stability and perseverance. And there can be a great loyalty that comes from the perseverance, a great work ethic. There can be on the side of that being crushed and burdened by responsibility. But when you have this ability to persevere and push through, you can accomplish so much with that Capricorn first house. And the trick here is to know when to give up, maybe, like you were saying, Julianne, that persevering and loyalty can be to a fault. And I see Capricorn as a loyal sign, very different in the loyalty that a Leo will show up. Leo is more emotional, more fiery loyalty, and Capricorn is like glue. And that's another thing I wanted to emphasize with Capricorn and Saturn, is that this part of our charts is a glue that grounds us to what's stable, maybe to that foundation. But if you're looking at it as a quality, it's not fleeting. And so wherever Capricorn or Saturn is, will provide loyalty through that glue that you're going to see it through. You're going to take the time to do things to bring it back to time. And the helpful gift here, I think, is really to continue to lean into the polarity of Cancer and nurturing, and to do that from self, to not look to the other for that Cancer nurturing. That if the Capricorn rising person can continue to work on self nurturing alongside of that constant pushing through and getting things done, then there's a really healthy blend of accomplishment. And this can reflect in someone's body or how they present to the world. So how we perceive someone. It can be the 10th house, but it can strongly be the first house. So going back to what people might have experienced in the Pluto transit, I made a note of body changes and full reversals on how you approach life, releasing parts of the approach that are holding you back, and then forcing us out of really deeply conditioned, crystallized patterns of how we take action in the world. And when we break down and remodel that crystallized, more concrete material that's been built, we have the opportunity to lean on more of the benefits of a certain energy, especially talking about Capricorn, and then just filter through. I saw the image of a sieve letting the debris of a rock fall through. So if the rock is starting to chip away and break, and that foundation is breaking, you're sieving the pieces, and that inherited dynamic of a Capricorn existence, or Capricorn is an archetype for patriarchy. So
Mm,
we were in some of the breakdowns that happened with COVID and those transits in Capricorn. This is about sieving through what's holding us back in society that's too rigid and not a core important part of the foundation that we need to take forward. As a little side note, this was the only sign that I did a quick check on celebrities, and Diane Keaton stood out as a Capricorn rising individual. And I was sad to hear about her passing this week. And I think she is a lovely image of a Capricorn rising with her sharp suits and crisp hair and
mm,
mannerisms about the way that she moves. And yet she has this serious, beautiful way of expressing her strut and her suits. I think of the refined quality of her presence. And I saw a video of Jimmy Fallon interviewing her, and I can add it in the description below if anyone wants to check it out further. But she was releasing her book and talking about the self-criticism that she went through. And that can be a piece
mm,
with Capricorn in the first house,
mhm,
where the way you see yourself can be too rigid, too
mhm.
focused on your physical structure, and maybe even critical of your accomplishments, in that there's a constant striving in Capricorn. That's the renewal process. We want to constantly strive to be better, and that can be our friend or our enemy. And I'll leave it there. See what
No, I mean,
how
you
you want to.
hit on like everything. What how I like to look at the first house is like there's an immediacy that's beyond thought in the first house, like that's beyond like, you know, because it's the house of the ascendant. You are to you, Capricorn is like what water is to a fish. Okay, so like you really don't realize that probably by you showing up somewhere, you're creating a boundary that is essential for the unfolding of reality. Like, and then of course that can be very heavy. Like that can be a lot of responsibility. Like this can be a child that has to take a lot of responsibility from a very young age. Like if you have a Capricorn rising or Saturn in the first, like very young age, you have a lot of responsibility because that immediacy of your impulse and the actions that you're just taking, right, that are just happening, right? Like Mars happens. Mars just happens, okay? I have a Gemini Mars, and so I'm like, do you think before you act or do you not? Like, I don't know. I think about that all the time, but it's like if I said Gemini Mars. Anyway, but with like a Capricorn first house, there's just something that you are. Remember, I said earlier this like inner government. Like you are a government to yourself, to your community, to your family, your lineage. Like Capricorn can be a lot about lineage and mastery, self mastery. Like your teachers, the teachers that came before your teachers, like as well as your kids. Like what structure your life is creating the possibility for. It's all very immediate, and so I would imagine, yeah,
Immediate's a
Capricorn.
good word.
Yeah, and so it can be very heavy. I'm just thinking of the Capricorn risings that I know, and it's like that depression usually is very prevalent for most, like
Yeah.
a big part of life. But when you can get to the other side of it, you literally have like a full reality. Like I know one painter that has this, and he has a like his world is incredible. Like he had to push through a big change in his late 20s, and then, you know, you go see his Instagram now, and it's just like he's created this magnificent world for himself, and it's so loved by so many people. Anyway, very interesting, but it really is just like a lot of responsibility. Yeah.
It's heavy, a lot of responsibility. I saved some of the childlike expression and youth stuff for the fifth house, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is the child who starts out as an adult and reverses in
Hmm.
age. So there's a
Yeah.
youthful quality
Yeah.
past 40, when Capricorns have navigated some of the burdens of responsibility. And I also wanted to point out that Saturn on the ascendant or anywhere near the ascendant ruler will also have a similar expression as what we're talking about with Capricorn in the first house, where the you reverse in age. You start out.
Hmm.
I've sometimes, just as a side note, I've sometimes looked at babies in strollers like, that's a Capricorn baby face. They look so bothered and annoyed to be here, and they're
That's
so
funny.
serious
You know
because
what
it's a
I think
baby.
about is that maybe not the babies now, but like even a few years ago when I started, like when I really was realizing that Pluto was going through Capricorn, I was like, all of you babies have Pluto in Capricorn. Like there's something very much so happening here. And I could kind of see it. I'm like, you're a little adult. Like you know more than I do. Like you actually,
That's cool,
like,
actually. Yeah, I
but
didn't think about
yeah.
how many babies are going to be born with
Oh,
Pluto and
like there's some Pluto
Capricorn. We're
Capricorn
we're in
babies.
for
Oh my God. What are they even going to be
yeah.
called? Like, are they a Gen Alpha? I don't know, but it's
I don't know,
wild.
but that's when society will go through
Yeah.
more of the changes that we have. It's that generation that's going to completely restructure our Capricorn society.
Mm-hmm.
So we started
Mm-hmm.
it right now, and
Mm-hmm.
in 15 years, when they start
Yeah.
becoming people out in the world making change,
Oh yeah. Very
watch
exciting.
out. Yeah, that is exciting.
Sagittarius rising, Capricorn in your seventh house. So, man, this is a very strong signature, the very strong earth signature to have Capricorn in the second house. There's something very valuable to you about the growth process of life. Like this, everything that we've talked about might feel innately very comfortable to you. Maybe this is more of a positive reading at first, I would say, but like there's something about how time and space work and how we grow into ourselves and all the ways we've just discussed that is deeply valuable to this chart signature because that second house is about where we find our own value, our personal value. There's something about our own structures that is really the most meaning, like very, very deeply nourishing for us in terms of it being like a fruit. This could be like very, and it's not just like it's how resources are able to sustain you and are more than that, like allow you to enjoy life, right? This Taurus second house mixed with the Capricorn. Go
There's
on.
a serious to that joy, a seriousness
That's a good way to put it.
there's so much practicality when you
Mm-hmm.
have Capricorn in Taurus's house. Those are the two slowest, most steady energies of the
That's
zodiac.
a good
And you
point.
have that in finances, your financial choices. Do they align with your ethics? And this
Mm,
is a really slow yet determined
yeah,
process throughout
really
life with
slow.
these two signs.
There
Yeah.
was I heard recently that I was reminded that like the second house signature is the how you like at its most essential is like how you hold your inner vibration and then how that allows yourself to really exude who you are based on who you know you are at your like the how your how your atoms are vibrating like you know your worth
Yeah.
because you know you have it, right? And to have Capricorn there, it brings to mind like it could be overly crystallized. Like this could be someone who is like it proclivity to like needing to know the black and white of their value maybe throughout this Capricorn like Pluto time in the last 10 years. Like maybe that was a very big undoing because like you're speaking to how solid this is, can the atrophy like you can get too crystallized. Is that the right word? I don't know. Like you can get too crystallized and then it can get very brittle. And so the
Yeah.
materiality of this house is just so, I mean, this could be literally about bones in a way that's more so than other. Like there's something really like second house, like
This need for security, this
that.
like
Yeah.
crystallized, like there's no give. And I love what you
Mm-hmm.
said about how we hold our own energy because that's
Mm-hmm.
always how I've described, or how I really, really like to describe the second and eighth house
Mm.
differences. And that we both need that certainty in who we are energetically, and then it becomes the energetic balance when we merge with another person. And when you have the polarity of
Mm. Oh
Cancer
my God.
in your eighth house, that blending can be watery. The eighth house can be scary as far as losing energy into a water sign. So it's both
That's right.
beneficial to have that really solid self-value, but where do
Mm.
you amp up your own energy in this part of your chart? Because Saturn can be so cold
Mm-hmm.
and flat sometimes. So you want to bring more energy to your own vibration so that you have some to give and blend with others when that time comes in the eighth house.
Yeah. I mean, that's bang on. That's yeah. I'm almost like yeah, mic drop. Like we're done. Like there's something
Done.
really
We're done,
like
Capricorn.
clear. Like no, done
Yeah,
Capricorn in the
good.
second. Like it's just like listen over
Yeah,
that a
that's
few.
what I
Like
meant.
I could listen over that a few times because it's really like oh my God. Like there's something simultaneously really like the values of this signature are somewhat aligned with the zeitgeist, like what Capricorn's been through and so I mean that can be at really any stage of consciousness like for whatever your reality is you're probably going to find some alignment in what many people value and what you value. I mean of course there's other chart signatures that could change that but this is just there's a real steady value and that's been through a lot of change in the last 10 years and so you 18 years and like so there's that rebuilding of your literal inner vibration of your literal inner worth that's really
Sense of
really huge.
sense of security. Capricorn second house people will have a renewed sense of security, and the gift here is to really be able to create stability and security for oneself, maybe at the
Mm-hmm.
cost of fun and freedom at times. But maybe that's what Pluto did for some of you, is
Yeah.
anything that was preventing you from overvaluing security and over focusing on what it takes to build security. That can give a little now. There's some remodeling to that,
Yeah.
whatever system was in place.
I
And
really
that could be
think
passed down through fathers too. There's a very, sorry, I
I-
didn't mean to cut you off, but there's that
no, no.
father like, put your money in investments and pay your bills and work 80
Yeah.
hours a week and you'll
Yeah.
be happy. And then the
Yeah.
Capricorn is like, but I'm not happy. I just did
Yeah.
all those things and
Yeah.
I don't feel happy.
No, my dad has this. I'm realizing he has a Capricorn second house, and it's that. And the thing is, like, it can show that you're very good at it, right? But then even just because you can be good at making money doesn't mean you know what to do with it. Like, doesn't mean you know what that actual value is. So this could be on that other end where it's like, yeah, you have a lot of fruits of labor, but is that actually matching what your soul vibration is like? Is that doing what it crystallizing
What
what it needs to, or is that
what
just
you
what you
value, not
yeah.
what everyone before you
Right.
valued.
Right.
That's going
That's
to be
it.
something we'll
Yeah.
keep coming back to with Capricorn.
Yeah.
Anyone who is watching who wants to add what you feel Capricorn was in the second house for you, and especially this last Pluto transit, would love to
Yeah.
hear everybody's perspectives on how this is showing up for your chart and for your life because it helps us, it helps other people listening. And let's keep this discussion going as far as what these possibilities could feel like to each individual.
Talk about manifestation. Talk about like making energy reality. Like, anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Very cool.
That's it. You just bang on. You just said
Yeah.
the one line we could put on this second house.
That's right, actually. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay, cool.
How do you put energy into reality? Love it.
So easy, huh? Okay.
Capricorn, third house, Scorpio rising. This is about expression and how you think about how you use your mind to function in a daily basis, how you use your communication to function, help yourself, help others. The third house is how we connect to others through communication. With the Capricorn third house, you can be too careful with your words.
Mm.
You can hold back too much. And I thought this was so perfect for Scorpio risings out there, if this is how it fits with your chart, because Scorpios are known for holding back, from my perspective, in a way that is self-protective, because the Scorpio can see deep into everybody's experience. And Scorpios know when someone's lying. If they
Mm.
hear someone say something that isn't what's actually going on. So as a result, I think Scorpios hold back because they assume that if they can see into the others so deeply, that others can see into them so deeply. And so they just don't want to open up that to everyone. But
Mm.
if you have Scorpios in your life, they probably do a little bit. So I see this as being a bit too calculated and reserved, and the ways that that can play in a negative way on our minds as far as self-criticism, shame, learning to be a bit more free and intuitive and malleable
Mm.
in what historically has been used for communication.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. I
What do you think?
it it in the context of the Scorpio thing, it's very interesting because it's not just that like the Scorpio is um like I think about laser beams when I see a Scorpio rising chart. It's like they can tell like people can read a room immediately. That's a Scorpio rising, and it's not like right in the most like essential expression of a Capricorn third house for me. It's not that the Scorpio rising wants to be so black and white thinking, but it's that like there's an essential soul energy of like a Scorpio rising that the only communication necessary are is the structured one like there because
Yeah,
that's
so
natural
well
for them,
said.
right? Like it's really again at its highest expression, and of course we're still learning and growing and maturing in this place, but this is someone who would probably get a lot out of an academic degree. This is someone who would get a lot out of institutional affiliation just for their mind, because this is someone likely who would know that it's almost frivolous to like need to structure a degree so much, because that third house is that Gemini energy where it's very like playful. And so these are people who could be like structurally, I don't want to use the word manipulative, but very good at deals and large institutions, just
Yeah.
like seeing the different options and like really moving stuff around, like comes very naturally to them in their minds. You
Okay, I wrote down appropriate delivery of information and ideas. So there is that,
easy,
like,
yeah.
it's so functional, it's so appropriate. You're not going to have someone who's blurting out their thoughts without thinking.
Right.
And that's so useful. That's the gift that I summarized for this piece.
Yeah,
It's
that's
super
very well
functional
put. Yeah,
communication.
totally,
Good
totally.
writers. Good writers,
hmm
the Scorpio rising
Oh
people.
yeah, very like thesis statement. Like it's even beyond that, because like I'm a little bit even beyond institutions now. I'm like Capricorn again. Like you understand the mechanics of words. Like there's something here. You understand the mechanics of the mind from a very just like efficiency. Maybe not even efficiency, but just like what's actually happening in your mind, what's actually real in like this could also just be like in some neighbor, like you could be a local government, like this could be like local government because that third house is like a neighborhood type of deal too, or your siblings, like you could be a like have an authority in your family. All right, maybe we can get into that in the fourth house, but this third house is also like there's some, maybe your siblings have some type of authority here too that are could be that interesting aspect of your life. I don't know, but that's a more
Yeah,
outward manifestation.
definitely those details could show up in an experience for sure. The siblings, the relatives. One thing that was
Mm.
coming to my mind, but and just that they could be older, they could be role models.
Mm.
So they could influence the mind on that, and that's how you can have a maturity of mind. If you have siblings that are older, then
Oh
you
yeah.
naturally adopt to being a bit older than you are because you grew up
Mm-hmm.
a little like observing another
Mm.
child who is already at a different level of experience. And mind mapping comes to mind. Like this is someone
Ooh,
who can mind map really well with visualizing the structure and what makes sense and why we have mind maps and how they help us integrate information and make use of it, appropriate use of the detail.
love that.
Or
Definitely.
or
Yeah.
like yeah, amalgamating ideas
Yeah.
in a map that makes sense.
Yeah. Kind of like systems thinking, like could be, yeah, very smart, like very just like clear. There's a lot of clarity
Sharp.
here. And,
Yeah,
even
useful
though
sharpness.
useful sharpness, 100%,
Because
like,
intelligence can be so scattered in a lot of other
oh my
energies and
God, that
signs.
Gemini
Like
stuff
we
is
just
crazy. Yeah.
it's like it's to be able to focus it into something
Mm.
grounded and narrow like Capricorn and
hmm
is such a beautiful gift.
This might be someone who really likes studying grammar. Like when you study a new language,
Yeah.
like you really might really like studying the rules of language. This could be a linguist. This could be like someone like, and I keep trying to think about what's this Pluto experience. Of course, it's going to be unique to everyone,
Taking
but
things
like,
too seriously.
mhm,
That's the thing with
yeah,
people who study linguists is that
sounds like a
it's
personal
so
experience.
annoying so annoying for that person when the rest of us speak in like words that are not even applicable to what we're saying.
That's funny. Yeah, like this is like a strong, but flexing a strong vocabulary, maybe. Like, that's funny. That's good. I'm sure there's been a humbling of like of like your authority through your words, right? Because that's these people want, or like they naturally express their authority through speech, through writing, through communication, or otherwise like exchange in that third house. And so very intellectually dominant. And I do think that that's like ivory towers collapsing in the last, 15 years. And you realize that like your natural intelligence will like shine for itself. You don't really need like, I don't know, there's something about the pieces here in the third house because it's not a whole belief system in the ninth. It's not a Sag thing. It's like the data, the maps, the pieces of information that are really important. And so it has natural flexibility in this house. So actually it's like a really nice combination because it's that more mutable place for an otherwise like cardinal or like rather rigid thing. And so this is someone who could, I don't know, it's very interesting. It's cool.
Especially because the water element of Scorpio in the first and then the polarity of Cancer in the ninth, you have that strong intuitive ability. So
Oh
there's
God.
that edge that brings in the
Oh
ability
yeah.
to really know what's useful and structured because the intuition and the ability to laser focus, laser
Yeah.
vision, I love what you said
Mm-hmm.
there too,
Mm-hmm.
is so strong. So there's a sense of knowing what other people need.
Yeah, actually, that's really, I realize both like many people in my family are Scorpio risings and they're all therapists, like LS, like whatever these people. And
Wow.
they have that very strong ninth house Cancer, or even a little bit of eighth house in Cancer too, depending on where anyway, like personal charts line up. And it's just that so strong emotional belief, intuition, like connectivity, empathy, knowing about nurturing, like it's an energetic thing. And so you need to be able to structure it through, like, I guess words are a very easy way, like you can really coax people into like understand and like bring understanding and compassion to bridge that sensitivity that they have. I don't know, it makes it's a great point. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that
very
a
cool.
lot. This is a great anchor for Scorpio
That's
risings.
right. That's right. Libra rising, Capricorn in the fourth.
This is where, and I have planets, my ruler Mercury and Sun in the
Mm-hmm.
fourth by Porphyry and Placidus. And this, I just wanted to mention that bit about my chart because this is where, as an astrologer, I've really started to lean into both. And I think that they both work. They both
Yeah.
have pieces of the story.
Yeah.
They very much fit into my fifth, but certainly fourth house Capricorn is an overstructured upbringing. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of seriousness. I think you touched on this with Capricorn rising that
Mm-hmm.
these are children that grow up with a lot of responsibility in the home, and that heaviness becomes an internal system that we project into our own home in how we create homes for ourselves. There can be great skills that are actually, they could manifest in a way that you can build and create home for yourself with ease and understand the rules that are required for healthy family, and yet break through and remodel the changes that a Capricorn fourth house individual wants to make for themselves.
Mm.
But this is another placement where, like the first house, there could be heaviness and too much seriousness internally. And it is something that isn't seen necessarily by the rest of the world when Capricorn's in the fourth house. This is our internal experience with ourselves. And sometimes but we don't always get in touch with that every day. It can come and go.
I think going at like in that you're speaking from such a deep place, and it really is that fourth house. That's like the deepest part of our chart. It's the home is the symbol of that, but it's that Cancer element of our safety and our emotional safety, not like Taurus survival safety, but like emotional safety. And in evolutionary astrology, also one of these like core teachings is you can only evolve through the emotional body. You must emotionally integrate something in order to actually be on this journey of evolution. You can't just like get the intellectual idea and be like, oh, I'm enlightened. It's like, no, you actually need to like bring this down through everything, right? Through your
I love
fleshy
that piece
reality.
so much. I love that. I just, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. I'm just so
No.
excited because I love that piece of EI teachings
Yeah.
or EA teachings so much. And yet I forget it
Yeah.
because probably because of those
This
placements. But
Capricorn, like
yeah,
it's very, it is a rule though. So maybe you can learn your rules. Maybe if you frame it
yeah,
as a rule for yourself, it's like, but the other thing I wanted to say, I mean, everything you said can be expanded on, like the richness of the lessons that you're even just touching on, but I have a different angle to share. I've worked with like one of my longest running clients has this and she has lived internationally a lot in her life. Her parents are from many different places themselves. But over these last since 2009, the last 18 years, she's like lived in one country for undergrad, had to move back to the home country, but still didn't even feel fully herself. Like there's something very structurally bound about what home is. And I don't know if I'm speaking to that very well enough right now, but like the literal borders, right? When you think about Capricorn, like the boundary of what home is, Capricorn in the fourth, the boundary of where you are nurtured, of where your safest place is and what is protecting you, like that Capricorn is the structural reinforcement of home itself, which in her case, to me, a lot of what we talk about is like, which place can I go that will actually hold me in the right way? I've had all these different experiences and I feel like this visa is not going to work. This one might, it's these kind of questions. It feels very practical, but it's like a manifestation of these like the outer limits. And I think it's interesting in astrology, you can really look at it at all these different fractal levels, right? Because within her family system, her different, anyway, like a parent can be from themselves two different countries. And so you're a child of two mixed parents. Anyway, there's just so many like boundaries and like places like where do I fit? And anyway, so
yeah.
borders come up
Is
here.
this a piece of borders? And is this a
Yeah.
piece where there's too much structure of what home
Mm,
should be to not
mm,
really feel at home?
that's right.
Because I'm glad you brought this up. I would almost think the opposite, that a Capricorn fourth house would have an easier time grounding in that it's Earth fourth house, yet I have that same condition where there's a constant dissatisfaction because nothing's
Mm,
ever quite right. There's
yeah.
always room for
Growth.
um, growth, for not feeling fully structured enough. And it's
Mm,
different for me because Sagittarius is the fourth house cusp, so that
right, right,
influences
right.
quite a bit. But I'm resonating with what you're saying as
Mm,
far as
you
there's a
know,
restlessness somehow,
I
even
think
with Capricorn in the fourth.
in a perfect world, right, of essence, this would be someone who is well structured emotionally through their whole life, but we're not in that world. Like we're in that world where we just came out of the Capricorn, the Pluto thing, and so what home has meant to you, to this person, to anyone with this signature, has been like the home and the boundaries, the borders have been the place of the biggest work so far. And they're like, you know what I mean? Like that's been the literal house, the literal context through which that deepest Pluto transformation was happening on their emotional body. It just is appearing to manifest in these borders and these specific boundaries. And it's just that's the lesson. And I know this client literally is a writer, like writes about border. Anyway, it's just like it's so literal. It's so interesting.
Structure keeps you safe.
Yeah.
This is
And
in essence
identity.
where
This would
structure
be a
keeps you
big
face.
one for identity itself, right? Because your identity needs like you are not something else, right? There's a black and white thing as to who you are, and that's where culture, like this is this very strong connection to culture potentially, like or a strong relationship to how culture, a cultural upbringing, culture affected or influenced an upbringing, and then identifying with that strongly because that fourth house is also our emotional lens, our ego lens of who we know ourselves to be, like the moon, and where we're integrating those experiences through a subjective perspective, which has to be cultural. It has to be like, oh, I am American or I am X. I was, raised in this culture, like, and that's gonna
Right.
be a way to determine that's is me, this not me. This is where I'm safe. Anyway, yeah.
And that's a really interesting piece that you mentioned, to blend the moon lens
Mm,
when you have the moon as the ruler of the fourth house by classic position through the wheel. And then you put a sign like Capricorn there, which is the lens for our material world. So then you're really overlapping
oof.
two lenses that could be quite useful being separate. Yet
Right.
that almost adds more Capricorn to someone's life when you're a Libra rising
Mm-hmm.
than any other sign.
And then you think about like you've been doing so well bringing in the opposite. Like this is someone who has Cancer in the 10th. This is like a matriarch. Like this is someone who has their own emotional authority in the world and is supposed to be like living that out. Like, and not even supposed to be, they are, right? Like that's the arena in which their compassion and their nurturing comes out, and it's structured. Like there's a that's that essence of a Libra flip chart. It's very, very cool, and it's in the way it manifests. I always forget that you're not a Libra rising, Jen, because your Libra is so strong in your chart. I know you're a
So
Virgo
strong
rising,
Libra. Yeah.
but you're very
Moon
strong.
in
So I'm
Libra
like,
and
yeah, yeah,
stellium.
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry, I didn't
I
mean to
forget too.
pigeonhole you earlier,
No,
but like,
no, I think
yeah,
it really fits. Yeah,
yeah.
no. The fifth
Show
house. So
me.
then that brings us to Virgo rising, which is how I have traditionally looked at my chart.
Mm-hmm.
And the fifth house being the house of play and our creative self-expression. With Capricorn in the fifth house, there's an element here of taking time to get to know one's creative self and true joy. This is where life could be taken too seriously. You can take your children too seriously. You could have children that are very Capricornian and they
Mm.
start out as very mature, serious children. But there's an element where creative self-expression and following the rules don't match. Their
Mm.
creative self-expression needs to be outside of the rules. But if you can align work and play, this is where some of the magic happens. So to a Virgo rising, play could be work and work could be play.
Mm.
And you need to find
Beautiful.
that middle ground so that, and I always chose activities that were militant, and this maybe speaks to my
Oh,
Mars
interesting.
edition there, but I like swimming and running and things that are linear and calculated, and I can constantly beat my personal best, but I'm not playing sports with other people. I'm not, and
Mm.
not that someone with a Capricorn fifth house couldn't, but there's going to be more draw to fun that has structure and fun that has is purposeful and it's going somewhere. And same
Mm.
thing with connections, because the fifth house is the place of dating, romance, but in its essence, it's the initial excitement about bonding at the heart level with another person. The initial stages.
Oh,
The seventh
that's gonna make me
house is
cry. I've never heard
the
about it like that
long-term
before.
commitment.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. It's that
wow.
flirtatious infatuation
Yeah,
phase,
but
and
when
that's
you
the
put it
love
like
flirtation.
that, that's so nicely Capricorn. Can you say that again? It was
Oh,
like the
I don't
beginning
even know what I
of,
said.
you said, I'm literally gonna cry. That's like so
The heart
beautiful.
space
Like,
connection.
yeah,
It's
the
someone
that
who's that.
initial spark, like that thing where you do, like it can happen, and then it can go become something else, but you need that
Yeah.
initial thing. You, however you said that was just like, oh my God, that's so beautiful,
I think
Capricorn fifth. You got it.
and I'm glad
Wow.
that it comes across that way. It makes me think of Namaste, like that initial, the soul in me
Mm,
sees the spirit in you. And there's
yeah.
that fire with Leo being the ruler of the fifth house. So with Capricorn, there can be a lot of tough lessons around what these connections can be. That's what the Pluto
Mm,
going through the fifth house was for me, in that where's the long lasting quality? There's a need for
mm,
purpose in our connections and in our fun. And if we burn out quickly, we open our hearts and we start a creative project that doesn't go anywhere, there's a disappointment in Capricorn energy that wants something that's going to last. And how do we make that creative spark turn into something? And that's where I think for Virgo risings or Capricorn fifth house people, finding creative work that you can
mm,
build and have purpose is where real fun comes in. The Benjamin Button archetype, reverse aging and getting more
mm,
playful with age.
mm-hmm.
And it needs to be an authenticity of what we do for work. Like what we do, what we work towards has to come from an authentic place of alignment in this house.
This could be someone who like runs a childcare business. Like there's like something
Yeah.
structural about really loving growth, like loving to see people become their potential, knowing how to hold time really well, like really enjoying holding time. But I can imagine, again, with this Pluto stuff and just the nature of Capricorn's heaviness, that it can almost feel like you're never going to reach the finish line and have fun. Like you can never, like fun is simultaneously too fleeting, or like too heavy like that. I don't know if fun could be too heavy, but anyway, there's just that's an interesting, I mean, this is like this would be a very commercially successful artist. This is someone who could
Yes.
like you could be a very commercially successful art like it's just, like you are kind of right. Like there's an artist, there's a flair, there's like a this fifth house is my favorite way to say it is like I think I might have said this to you before. It's like where you're at a party. Like where like what kind of party you'd throw. Like your sun or your fifth house is very much so like your party. So this is a party with a menu that's it's got a plan for the party. We've got a menu of what we're eating at the party. You know, we got our time structured. It's chill. It's actually very cool. There's like a luxury element with the Capricorn. There's something really like quality, like quality joy here. That's really,
Yeah.
yeah, like must like not just doing things well to do it well, but to do it well because it is of fire essence. Like it is that joy. Like you know that you work for that. You don't work for nothing. You work for the spark of life, and like you work to be at a party, basically. I don't know
I
if you would
love
agree
that
with
you
this,
use
but
the word absolutely. I love that you use the word quality because I think that's something
mm,
we haven't, a word we haven't used yet. And it's so
mm,
important
mm,
for, there's a refined
that's right.
quality
That's right.
to
That's right.
Capricorn, the diamond over time that gets
Mm-hmm.
formed under pressure. Classic is another word that I think
Ooh,
of with
ooh, chills. Yes,
Capricorn.
yes,
There's
yeah.
like the gift and the curse is that the play and the expression of art and self-expression is not so free, but like having Capricorn in the third house, it has a process or a expectation
Mm-hmm.
that it wants to achieve.
Yeah, as just two more things on this come to my mind. And the first is the Cancer polarity. Like when you go back to the party, you see like this is someone who really knows how to nurture a community with the Cancer 11th house. It's someone who really maybe feels very nurtured within a community as well. And then so that can bring then like the actual work of the joy, like there's purpose to it because you find that warm connection with other people because you know it's similar to what you said before, like once you like own your own internal creativity, own your internal vibration, then you can meet someone else fully and have that relationship really like work for both of you. You don't need to be letting go of part of yourself to be someone. So this is just there's like a really classic star quality, almost like old Hollywood, like something really like really cool. And I think maybe oh yeah, the last thing is just you know, back to what I was saying about the first house, like there is an immediacy in the fifth house to me that's somewhat like it's not to say that these people like you don't have creativity, but it's that creativity is so important structurally in your life actually. Like it is the thing upon which you stand. Like it is the actual structure, it's the scaffolding, right? Like you don't just you don't just think about it and have to figure it out. It's there. It's your creativity. You see what I'm trying to say? Like it's not like
Mhm.
it's what you rest on, so it's yours, but
It's
it's not
so
gonna
much a
yeah,
foundation for everything else in the chart. So
yeah,
then creativity is, and yet it can take a long time to
yeah,
brew wherever it is for everyone's
that's
chart.
right.
And that's the part that I constantly want to emphasize the patience around
Mm-hmm.
wherever you're at in life for those those listening is that
Yeah,
it's taking the time is a really important part of that Capricorn placement and the it will show its benefits and there's such richness to the the quality that can show up when we take our time with a part of our charts. And I like that you mentioned taking care of children as a like
mm.
business, as a
That's right.
childcare, and that there's a
Specific.
yeah, it is, and it might show up for some people, but such a strong loyalty with
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn in the
Mm.
fifth house to
Mm-hmm.
self, to children, to creativity,
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
yeah,
Gallerist.
making everything purposeful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, we're at time, but the last thing I'll say is that,
Yeah.
like, for someone to really be loyal to creativity, there's a, like, as a painter myself, like, creativity is crazy. There's so much there. And so to be able to structurally hold that or even have the imprint to do so is what allows artists to be artists and like have a so like this is like doing God's work basically for all of the creative fire to actually happen because without that we'd just be setting fires everywhere and the whole world would burn down. So
Very
That's what I
cool.
have.
That's
Okay.
that we're not going to top at that. So yeah, let's so sixth house is Leo rising. Take it away.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, it's heavy. This one feels kind of heavy. The day to day feels kind of heavy.
Yeah.
Sixth house is just naturally one of those places that you are doing your Virgo work. And I say that because, and this is me also trying to restructure the way I think about astrology and all these things. I think Virgo says sixth house has this reputation of being that grind, that place where like you have your health issues, you have your job, your job that you don't actually want to do, but it pays the bills, right? But the way that I prefer to like think about it these days is that the sixth house is where you can place your attention and where you can place your focus, and that is truly your biggest currency. Like that's truly what this idea of habits in the sixth house too. And essentially we only do habits because we want to become the person who that's that reflex for, right? Like the habit itself is just in training us to do something. And so there's something about the day-to-day life that's very structured for this person because there's something that they are like adoring, right? Virgo comes back to adoration and to devotion ultimately because you're never you're empty. Like Virgo is like the ultimate emptiness. It's the ultimate place where spirit can come through, but you need to maintain your emptiness. You need to maintain your quote unquote purity that's been very distorted. So I imagine that with this placement, especially since 2008, again, there's might have been like a big death and rebirth around what it means to be pure, what it means to, like, gosh, I don't even know, like, devote yourself to something structurally. Like this, I don't know. There's probably many, many ways this can
Taking
go.
service very seriously, taking order
That's
of
right.
life
That's
very
right.
seriously,
Yeah.
and to the
Service.
point of bad, not, I don't like the word bad, to the point of habits that are self-destructive.
Right. That's right.
Capricorn is the devil card in tarot, and that's like there can be addiction, and Capricorn can work itself to the bone and take everything so seriously, especially in the sixth house where Virgo is, that they crack under pressure and end up with illness. There needs to be definitely more of that 12th house Cancer
Yeah.
polarity pulled in where there's nurturing and rest. So
Yeah.
important for this placement.
As you say that, it makes me think actually though that like that Cancer polarity might be really overwhelming at sometimes though, just because of um how big emotions must feel with this placement. And that probably makes sense then as to why Capricorn's in the sixth, in order to just actually create the scaffolding that will allow you to have a human interface with the amount of emotional sensitivity, the emotional possibility that you probably feel with a 12th house Cancer placement. I mean, that's a type of openness, again, to the emotional body that I don't know, that's not
Some people
it's so empathic, powerful, but it can be a lot.
Some people could even force it into their blind spot subconsciously as a protective mechanism because there's
That's very
such
smart.
strong contrast between the sixth
Yes.
and 12th house of so much serious earth and getting things done and a need for productivity. And another thing that came to me was seeing problems and being able to fix them, which is a wonderful gift and asset, yet out of balance and not leading in enough to rest and intuition of being able to prioritize what you fix. It can end up being just a sea of problems, and
Right.
that can be a hard perspective. I think the gift in this one is an ease in productivity, an ease of
Right.
getting things
Right.
done.
Right.
And that person might not even see that about
Yeah.
themselves. They might just see where they need to go, not how far they've come. So
Right.
to really take the time to lean into nurturing and rest and that emotional world, I think you're so right, Julianne, that could be overwhelming. So emphasizing on self-nurturing and whatever slow ways that drips in to the sixth
Right.
house over
Right.
time, take it
Right.
slow, but
I
take the
mean, to
pressure off.
emphasize the positive though, I mean, this business mind, this is such an effective work. I mean, the brain capacity, the logic capacity, the mental rational thing is real spot on. And that, when that works well with the 12th house Cancer, you can be like channeling and offering information that will actually be really structurally helpful to people and consistently helpful. So yeah, tall order
So
can be a tall order though.
You are getting more done than you think.
Yeah,
so definitely.
that's right.
This is
That's right.
And that's the thing with our own personal charts, is that having an astrologer point out what is going on can be that nice self-reflective piece, and even permission. Capricorns need permission sometimes
Right.
if they're
Oh, that's a
overly
good point.
following the rules,
Yeah.
and that permission to recognize that you have done more than the average person. Because that's the other thing we don't see about our own lives, is that if we have striving built into us, it's hard to look back and see what we've actually accomplished. Would love to hear how
Oh
Capricorn
yeah.
or Saturn in the third house is showing up for your chart. It's so helpful to have these chats in the description below to know what's going on. This will fit to so many people watching as far as how everyone's experience unfolds.
Capricorn in the seventh house, and this might be for probably Cancer rising people.
Yes.
My goodness, relationships are very important for this person, to put it bluntly here. Um, this is someone who will thrive when roles are defined. This is not someone who probably likes ambiguity in relationship settings. There likes to be almost a strong professionalism, strong like client relationships, strong contracts with people. Cancer first house, again, similar to Cancer 12th house, but the first house is just emotionally everything's on your sleeve. And so when you're in a relationship then with someone, if everything's always going to be on your sleeve, you need to know, like, there's just the parameters that become very necessary when you are going to be spending a lot of time with one person. Like, everything's just going to fall out. I don't know. I could, yeah.
Cancers love containers because
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
safe.
It's the water.
That's what I see in
Yeah.
this. It's like the container and another person.
Yeah.
And I do sometimes see that even as the elements, that water needs a bowl.
Bowl. That's
It
right.
needs the wooden bowl, the earth element.
Yeah.
And so long-lasting relationships, working
That's
on the
right.
structure of relationships, having routine, being with older people or mature individuals who are also wanting to create structure. And everyone's personal chart can be different. I know lots of people
Yeah.
with strong Cancer that don't fit this necessarily, but it can also be that relationships change over time, and what you value in another person, what your contracts are. There's a slow burn to developing this part of your life with other people. And I guess to the flip side, those Cancers that I know that don't fall into that needing structure from other people, they actually feel like relationships can be a burden or too
Right.
limiting. So it's too
Right.
confining, and they
Yeah.
want freedom, and they want to be more self than merge into the limitations that the structure of a relationship can imply.
I thought what you said about the dating older people, very like this maturity that one finds in someone else, and the, like, again, the structure that holds the water. I think that's all really just spot on. It's so clear, because that Cancer in the first house is very childlike in comparison to a lot of the other signs that we've been having, right? Like having the impulsivity of the first house, and Cancer, if it's in that first house there, it's like you're going off your emotions. Like you're just, and a lot of Cancer rising people really need to keep their circle kind of tight, because they know that when they bring someone into their life, that there's just going to be that flow, that openness and the emotionality, really. And so to that seventh house is so interesting, because it's like it's relationships, but it's also like where we're getting a one-to-one full phase opposition with someone else. And what I like to think about with a full phase opposition is like I think we've been saying it this whole time, but with this house, it's this axis, it's very, very important that, like, you must know your own worth and know your own strength as equal to someone else, in order to have a functioning relationship. And so or rather a healthy relationship. And I think probably for this Cancer rising people, relationships might have been one of the most transformative places of their lives over the last 15 years, getting married, getting divorced, meeting very significant one-on-one people who change the structure of their reality, a death, there's a literal like something this. And I to be honest, I feel very frazzled talking about this one. Like there's like, it's really like, it gets me. It's that Pluto opposition, right? Like these people had Pluto opposing their first house, and there's like this, it's kind of like when I had the Pluto opposing my sun, there's just this like,
That's what I'm thinking. It's
yeah,
so
it's
visceral for you.
really, yeah. So yeah, and I've known people quite intimately with the signature too, and it's just like that structure. It's really extraordinary. It really creates, it gives authority to other people. Anyone you sit down with, you're respecting them. You know what I mean? That Cancer rising really allows you to feel very respected in their presence, and so they're a very powerful person to be around, I would say.
Yes. And there could be a lot of lessons in relationships with this recent Pluto transit around what are you attracted to in another person, in that is it this more practical qualities that feel safe but actually are not true emotional safety for a Cancer. So being with a partner who has everything good on paper or is very successful and
Mm,
goal getter and achiever, and that's a sense of stability in a relationship, and it's important in for some people, and it can be important in life, yet the Pluto transit will add more to that, so it'll still exist, but yet there'll be more of a depth of what else is there in a relationship that's going to fit a
mm,
Cancer's soul and
yeah.
needs, as far as reaching that watery realm and not keeping things on the surface, which Capricorn can get into when there's too much outward contract reality. This could also be where actual contracts could come up, as far as being clearer for Cancer rising people, where you have authority in relationships and contracts, and where you want to be really discerning and smart about, just as a small extra layer, that contracts
Mm,
can show up in this house, so it could show up in any other part of your life that means signing a contract, including business
right.
relationships.
Right. I mean, this is someone who could be a very strong business partner, honestly, like that type of
Yeah.
thing. But it's interesting. It really makes me think about this Pluto transit because, yeah, but the thing is, like, we're done with Pluto and Capricorn now, right? So it's kind of like we're waking up from a hangover, and I imagine these people, it's not like anything needs to change now in that in that seventh house. And like really, right, the seventh house is the first place where we really start interacting with other people. Now we get to the seventh house, and we're outside of ourselves. We're interfacing with the world in a way that's not just ourselves. And so Capricorn, like you said, becomes that contract with reality itself, right? Like it's presented to you full phase. And so now that Pluto's out of Capricorn, it's not like you're done with the structural maturing, all the changes that you went through, but there's almost like I don't know what would you say to that? Because to me, it's like we're still on this hangover. Like we're not having Pluto go back in, but it still feels like something is like I
It's
don't
still
know.
adjusting. It's reminding me of patriarchy and matriarchy, a whole other big topic, but I think it just adds a layer to, we're now trying to meet in the middle with what's
Mm,
happened with Pluto and Capricorn. And that's where there's still a big question mark as to, we just had Pluto crumble, and Pluto's just gone direct as we're recording this.
that's
So
right.
it
That's
went
right.
all the way back to 0 degrees Aquarius, or 1 degree. Did it go to
122.
zero?
122.
122. So
Yeah.
it's still so close to
Yeah.
Capricorn energy that when we're looking at
Yeah.
Placidus or other chart systems, Porphyry, this is still going to be very relevant for the
That's
journey
right.
for a lot of people,
That's right.
especially just after this retrograde. So
Hmm.
we don't expect to have all of the pieces of that Pluto journey set, but this week, as Pluto goes direct,
That's
we
right.
might start to feel some things click into place, and
That's
it might even
right.
be uncomfortable. Um,
No, that's
yeah,
spot on. No, thank you. That's what
it's still
I was,
changing.
yeah. No, I really needed that. Thank you. I mean, this one, I don't know. It's big. It's
Yeah,
very big. It's
it's a big
big.
one. It could go in so many directions with the
I know.
seventh house. It's really
It really
the angles
can.
of the chart affect our whole lives.
Yeah.
So that's where we try to divide, but it really, like when we're talking about the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th, it applies to our entire lives.
Yeah, no, I think, I don't know, Jen, also you and I, when we end up talking about relationships with people, I feel like we all, like, there's always something we can drop into. I think like maybe that's definitely for another combo,
That's
but
another
like
video.
this Libra thing, this like, whoosh, there's a lot, I feel, but I think for now we've done a
Yeah.
good job for what we need to do. Capricorn in the eighth for Gemini rising. Wow. This is really interesting because it makes me think of someone who is really maturing into their own psyche, their own psychology, their own psychic, like, powers in a sense. And that might have been a really important tone that was set over the last 18 years, that there is something really important psychological for them to master. Capricorn is the sign of mastery. In that sense, it is that,
That's another good word we haven't brought up
right,
yet.
that's right. And as we're growing into that, this is psychological mastery. This is there, thus can also be, more negatively, someone who is very, I don't want to say psychologically manipulative, right? This Gemini rising potentially, like it could be anything, but there's a quality of quick communication, wordsmithing, trickster, like not this is sounding bad, but like, Capricorn and Pluto eighth house transit in particular can be very deep and very like putting your hands in the seat of the deepest power that you have, which is also the deepest seat of your own fear. And that comes down to like, again, like authority. Like, are you having psychic authority in your life? Of your soul, basically, like what's your relationship to your soul? Because and then if we go to the more superficial presentation of the signature, this is like money, this is like investments, this is like long term, like long run investments, right? Like this would be someone who like
Yeah.
invests early on and stays in for decades, like because they know like that's the slow growth of or you're creating a business that needs an investment, needs a very long-term investment. It's kind of could be either one of these things, but there's something a deep trust. Trust with the eighth house is very, very necessary. Like blind trust almost. And with Capricorn there, it could be almost impossible to expect blind trust from someone where you can't really show the proof and say, here's the projection of the growth that's possible. But yeah, these are all things that come up for me when I see this signature.
Yeah. And
Where would you
yet
linger?
the I 100% agree with everything you're saying. And at the flip side of that slow and steady growth of investments in the eighth house, maybe not, maybe this is adjacent, but ability to have longstanding support from another person,
Mm,
intellectually, in that transformation of psychology. And this is the house of Pluto, the eighth house.
that's right.
So there can be more resistance to transformation here at a psychological level. And maybe that is from having support from other people. There could be many factors for why, but there's that more density in the experience. And with Pluto being in there, that house, and it being the house of Pluto, there's a need to go exactly what you said, into the fear in a way that trusts that you're going to come out the other side. And this is where someone can release the shame and guilt that is so
Mm,
deeply built into the
that's
framework
right.
of our society. Productivity, shame and guilt, and really releasing patriarchal ways of being in the world, either through from other people and stepping away from that, or creating change with that dynamic and being a leader for change in that dynamic. And what stood out, when we say trickster about Gemini, or I recently used the word manipulation in Libra with the recent Libra new moon, the one coming up, is that these are also very beneficial energies. Being a trickster
Mm,
comes in
of
very
course.
usefully when
Yeah.
someone can play different roles
Yeah.
and step into things differently. So all of those terms will have multiple
Yeah.
ways of manifesting in assisting, helpful ways and detrimental. And that's where a Pluto transit through the eighth house of Capricorn can really shed anything that has been
Mm,
detrimental to growth and transformation, and might be sitting right now in this moment of And this might lead into the ninth house. Like, what do I believe
Yeah.
in? Where
Yeah.
do I stand? Like, there can really be a shattering of the old that we're still very unclear of, like you said, Julianne, of what Pluto has done and where we're moving forward as a result of those changes in Capricorn.
Yeah, no, that's really beautifully put. And it, I'm just going to the Cancer second house, that inherent value of emotion, like the inherent value of safety, of trust, of emotionality, of your home, of
Yeah.
these things that, and again to that EA teaching of like you must grow through the emotional body. These are people who probably realize that very intensely about themselves. Like, I'm only going to grow if I actually feel this, and so I need to go deeply. Like this honestly can be someone who's very capable, a very powerful change maker in their own lives, could counsel other people to make big changes as well, just because of the systematic approach to the soul or to the psychology. And then they also understand the physical, tangible value of emotional safety as something that's not some fleeting, sappy thing, but that's actually the place of growth, the place of evolution in the second house that opposes it, that balances out that Capricorn eighth. So very, yeah, I do linger, like you said, though, right now on like this Capricorn hangover and that move into the eighth house. It's kind of that like the phoenix that's already maybe been reborn but hasn't, like it's taking its time to fly back up in the air right now. It's like, okay, I'm not just ash anymore, right? Like I've done all my like I've reconciled all the ashes and I've born myself again, but am I shooting up in the flames yet to go? Like, I don't know.
And that's the
Yeah,
gift, is taking time with transformation
there you
with
go.
Capricorn in the
There
eighth,
you go.
and that this can create long lasting deep connections.
Wow.
That there's purpose in that depth now with Pluto having gone through there. And that might be something for Gemini type people that really, because Gemini has such a skill in gathering all of the information, and that can sometimes stay on the
That's right.
surface. So Capricorn in the eighth, having gone through such a deep Plutonian transit, can deepen bonds and have more purpose to the energy of connecting with other people.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think purpose leads us well into the ninth house.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go right in.
Capricorn in the ninth house could also be many Taurus risings.
Yeah.
And with the ninth house, there are healthy limits around our roles of spirituality and beings where we expand knowledge and want the richness of experience and the fool card of dropping into an experience just for the sake of experiencing it. And with Capricorn here, there needs to be more purpose. There needs to be
Hmm.
something that then materializes in a concrete way from expanding the mind. And what do we do with all of this knowledge? What do we do with a constant changing perspective of the world? And how do we put that into material? Because it is always changing. And I like to say the ninth house, it's not the truth if it's yesterday's truth. And that's
Hmm.
Capricorn
Wow.
ninth house overlap, that's we're in a new day, we're in a new moment, and we need to take some of that past with us, but what can we build on top of that? And this is you, Julianne. This is Jupiter in
Oh, that's
Capricorn. We
true.
have
Oh, I
this
didn't even think
overlap
about that.
energy of like,
Oh
this
my
can't
God.
stay stone. This can't stay
Yeah.
just the foundation. This needs to constantly grow. This would be bone remodeling for bodybuilders that grows a lot faster than the rest of us.
Oh my God, Jen, I love the way you're talking about this. I didn't even think about myself at all. It shows you how fixed in my ways I am about this, but it's so that everything you said about the ninth house being like yesterday's truth, like, oh my God. And then to that end, having Capricorn there, the very basic things I think of are like being a very well-regarded teacher, like someone who has
Mhm.
gained a level of mastery over these truths that you just articulated. This could be a very philosophically inclined or spiritually inclined teacher, but someone that holds authority in waking life. Like, it's not just some, like, this is someone who puts their money where their mouth is to a certain extent. It's not, I think the ninth house, because it's so fleeting, sometimes can, not have anything to prove for itself. It's just a blind belief, right? But this is someone who's not going to do that. I mean, if they are, gives me like a more like big church leader, like where there is a lot of people, there's a lot of proof in other people, in the structure of reality. And I'm no judgment on that. It's just this what I think. There's something collectively, a collective belief runs very strong here when it's
So well
yeah,
respected
yeah, very well respected, very well
for
respected.
knowledge and the teachings. And so those of you that might not see that about yourselves,
Right,
your beliefs
right.
and perspectives of the world are very respected, and there's a commitment to intellectual growth that other people look up to. And
That's
that could
right.
be what you're talking about with the leadership in the spiritual department, or being a
Yeah,
teacher
I
in any
mean,
way.
on the flip side, though, this could be very dogmatic. This could be very crystallized because of the Capricorn tendency to hold on to the past. And that ninth house dogmatism could, like, when you really think that what you believe and your version of the truth is the best, like if you haven't arrived at a type of flexibility in the structure of your reality yet, then, you know, I wonder, I imagine maybe again, since 2008, maybe these are things that have been pushed into your life, like for whatever reason you've had to gain some like flexibility and like in that structural belief that you have. But that's what makes someone who's very well respected, is they've weathered a lot of change, right? And they still hold their authority, and maybe it's changed, maybe their role has changed, but they still hold their own weight. They can accept maybe where they had too rigid of thinking, or maybe where they messed up, or like it's not even about messing up per se. It's just like where they've allowed themselves to actually grow. But I just, that crystallization in the dogmatism, that these are things that also speak from this position, but just on the other side of that coin, regardless if that is what you're feeling, like you have all the necessary pieces to turn that into mastery and to growth. It's just a matter of how you're looking at it, how you're using it, how you're interpreting
Yeah.
it. Ninth is a lot about your interpretation of reality. So how you're interpreting your own experience might really grow over time. Like through your own maturity, you're gonna gain more wisdom about time itself. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Ongoing change of the perimeters is what has been
Beautiful.
likely activated,
Beautiful.
so that when you want to continue to expand those boundaries of, and this is what makes this person so well respected, is that that growth has an applicable container, yet that
Beautiful.
applicable container needs to change over time as our society changes, and each person's ability, as we evolve in this human reality, each person's ability to take in knowledge changes every year. And as teachers, people need to adapt to what the student's ready for. And
That's right.
brings back to religion and spirituality. I have always really loved what the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah, taught about every prophet that has showed up in our world, was that we were not meant to hold on to the old. Every 2,000 years, a new prophet was born, a new religion, a new spiritual lens, because we were meant to move into that new, because we were ready for more information. We don't need to stay stuck in the teachings of 4,000 years ago.
Beautiful. Absolutely. 100%. And it brings me to that third house, Cancer, which is that all that new information, which this person actually probably can handle. Like there's an amount of safety, or an amount of
Yeah.
like emotional understanding, like intuitive data that this person gets easily. And that's how they live their
Yeah.
life and communicate.
And intuitive sense of where other people are at too,
That's
with
right.
that third
In their
house.
own minds, in their own logical thinking processes as well. So that probably gives them that capacity to be in that leadership position at whatever point they do. That's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Very amazing leaders of the world.
That's right. Wow. Tell us how it's going, guys.
Yeah.
What are you leading?
Yeah. Would love to hear. Yeah. We definitely want more insight into who
Yeah, that
these
this one,
Capricorn
like,
Ninth people are.
yeah,
Yeah.
how do you do it actually too? Because like, I mean, we'll go
Yeah.
into, I'll say more about my, anyway, but it's just like that being able to grow while holding structure is not for the faint of heart. Like, anyway, it's cool.
Yeah,
Please tell
you
me.
live
Please
that. You
tell
live
me.
that, Julianne.
We got
Let's
to reflect on it all together because I can't do it. Anyway, we'll get into that in a few houses
absolutely,
here.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because there's such a duality here
Oh my,
of
well, and the other thing is it's putting the
crazy
cart before the
expansion.
horse a little bit because seventh house, ninth house comes before 10th, obviously, 9,
Yeah.
10. But if you're trying to do all your 10th house work in the ninth house, it's like you haven't caught up to the zeitgeist. Like, anyway, if we go into the 10th house,
Let's
can
do
you
it.
shift into the 10th
Let's go
house?
to the
Because,
10th. Yeah, I
yeah,
want to
because
hear what you
this
have
is
to say
what,
about the 10th.
this is really where those like rules, like the laws, the collective laws actually become manifest in terms of like your local regulations, your government national regulations, and then international regulations, borders, right? Business practices. We didn't really talk about taxes in the eighth house. That's more of an eighth house thing, but it's just the bureaucracy of it all. And, this 10th house signature is someone who's going to, even if you're very spiritual, you probably have a business. Like there's something very business minded about this. It's a double signature of that 10th house, Capricorn. It's all there. And I think you said a word earlier, which we hadn't said yet, which was purpose. Maybe we have said it, but I like isolating that word purpose for Capricorn. And it's very strong into the 10th house because purpose goes beyond career, which would be what people say naturally about the 10th house. Just it's what your career is. But this 10th house is truly your purpose. It's truly what you are maturing into through time, through space, through reality. This is it's beyond having wisdom. It's beyond having a belief because this is where the belief that you probably worked for in the past has become crystallized. And it's not just crystallized in your own life, it's crystallized in a collective shared life in which people rely on this thing. And you have some immediate part to play in how you show up as part of not just a community, not just a faith or a belief, but in how your literal community, your house, everything is set up, your job, the road, the taxes you pay to get the road where it needs to be. Even if you pay your taxes from a spiritual business, you're like, I know that my investments, like it's just there's a linearity, there's a way that this all really needs to add up for this person, this signature to make sense because it's such a like you're locked in. And I think the thing that might have been difficult in the last several years is just that like a lot of the structures that you've built just might have literally either crumbled or needed to learn how to take a lot more energetic space because I don't think everyone who has a 10th house Capricorn it means that their business crumbled. That's not at all what the point is here, but the point is like Pluto
Big
wanted
job transitions, big career transitions,
transitions.
changes. I know a lot of Aries rising people that just jumped around a little bit while Pluto is
Mm,
in Capricorn because of that reassessing
yeah.
what work and when everything I'm hearing you say is that for those people with Capricorn in the 10th house are so ready for
Yeah.
self authority now.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
new awareness of understanding how to work with the parameters of
Yeah.
societal rules and boundaries and be an authority figure for yourself outside of whatever some maybe outside of whatever those rules of society are now because there's more interplay between what one can do and what we can do effectively within those rules and public reputation because this is so
Mm,
right now cancers have been going through a lot of 10th house activation. And I see this as learning how to feel comfortable in public and step out in a role that you really want to be seen for. And with the polarity of Cancer in the fourth house, safety is home in the inner world. And there can be so much discomfort to merging those two inner world and outer reputation images. And what do you want your status to look like? And something that we're reworking now is what a public and career reputation should be, especially in a Capricorn sense, because in the 50s, being business focused had a certain dress code. It had certain language that you had to use in business. And now we're creating some leniency in there. It's like we don't need to wear a suit to be respected. We don't need to keep our dialogue, and this is more third house, in a proper manner. We can expand those rigid rules of leadership and still make it work and make it work more because it's more relatable. Capricorn can be, as a leader, can be too separate from the people that are looking up to the person in this role. And when we shift a little, so we're more human, we're less of a just this authority figure. It reminds me of a father that is too strict. It's like, are you even going to follow that father's rules? Or if that father's a little more like Cancer polarity, like, hey, honey, these rules are here for this reason, and I'm going to be here and I'm going to love you, but we're going to implement these rules, then the person is more likely to get on that same team.
Yeah, wow. So this is, I realize by porphyry, my Jupiter's in Capricorn 10th. By whole sign,
Yeah,
it's
thinking
11th.
about that. So
And
I'm going to
it's
let
so
you take away
funny.
the 10th and 11th.
Well, yeah, I just to reflect even on this moment of what I said before and then hearing you speak, like for whatever reason, I feel like I clicked into this purely 10th house, just like rattling off all these things that I knew. And I'm like, "Brrr," and then you start talking and I'm like, oh my God, there's no heart. Like I need to like bring some like, I'm just like rule, structure, this, that, da 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 da. And it's like, hey, like let's be a human a little bit. Like let's like breathe into it and understand the vitality of it. I mean, I just witnessed myself because I didn't even think about the fact that this was part of my signature by porphyry. And it just was so second nature. I was just like, let me explain to you this. Like, let me mansplain this to you. It wasn't, I don't think I was mansplaining, but
No,
anyway,
but I love that you're bringing this up about your chart because you and I have also had this discussion off screen, and that's how I see you, is that you don't need to put so much focus on your Capricorn energy because it's so already there. So you could be more in your Jupiter in
I
Capricorn
wish.
placement and go into, I think you do without noticing.
I think I do, but it's everything that you just said because it's this piece of me stepping into it now. Like there's like it's like okay, it's time. There's an amount of work that this element this position also needs to do though. There's an amount of life preparation that needs to get you there. I mean, you are born with it in the chart, but you do need to come to a conscious awareness where you can then choose it. And then because if I'm just relying on it, I'm just letting it flow, then I don't know its value, right? Like I don't know what the purpose of it is. I just feel like my energy has shifted. And so I think what's happening is just this fine tune. It's this Capricorn hangover. And it's like, because having Pluto there was a lot. It was like I knew that something was powerful there in me that was changing, totally changing, totally dying and being reborn. But it was so sensitive. I mean, it opposes my sun, that Cancer polarity. Anyway, we can get into it with the 11th house too, because my sun is in the 5th. But anyway, there's just like, it's a lot. And it's very interesting that it is really just, it's like a straight shooter. This is a signature to have Capricorn in the 10th is just like, and then everything you were saying about learning, like these shifts away from the rules and like having the kind father speak and explain to you why the rules are there. They're not purposeless. I think we're so used to having rules that are are not standing on their own 2 feet anymore, right? Like the bureaucracy is being held up by a stilt. And so what's supposed to work doesn't. We're used to things that like not working that are supposed to work. And so there's an amount of like anyway, I could just be on a soapbox about this.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think it's the piece of not being held on the framework of the past that Capricorn gets stuck on, and
Totally.
that we can move. We're not fully in Aquarius of the revolutionary stage,
Yeah.
yet there needs to be a remodeling of the framework before we step into that revolutionary 11th house stage, which is fitting now that we're in this
Yeah.
alignment of the Aries chart and now can really talk about what the 11th house breakthrough and what's really possible there.
Capricorn in the 11th, which would possibly make you a Pisces rising. Here's where, to me, it's like the flip side of Capricorn in the 9th is because now the horse is really before the cart. Like you're really you're really trying to expand materiality. Like you're really trying to expand the structures of the world with Capricorn in the 11th house. And this is my signature. The way it's shown up for me, like most manifestly, is just being a part of very interesting groups that have been very well structured, like through governments. I've been in very like governments and institutions, which would be kind of the more Capricornian thing. I have been able to be a part of groups of people, like networks, 11th house, which are beyond my wildest dreams. Like, it's a great fortune that I've had to be able to access this, but this provides such clarity, such support, right? In its most mature expression, Capricorn is like, you have the resource, you have the space, you have the intention, you know why the space is necessary. So go into that space and do something completely new, right? Like, it's really like allowing, like really, really have a meeting of the minds, right? It's kind of like having a AI or a philosophy club within a really old institution, right? That's very much been my experience. Not necessarily AI or philosophy, but just like being a part of very new network, like new or networks that are at the edge, right? The 11th house is where we're at the edge of our own consciousness, and it's that horizon line of experiences, and same with the Aquarius archetype. So these are really two blendings, but to have this archetypally also means that the structure of your reality. So like for me, like groups are integral to my support. Like having a group of people is very integral. And I will say, having Pluto been there since 2009, my many groups have been shattered in my life. Like, my ability to access groups has gone through a lot. They've been very powerful, but my ability to connect to them and draw resource from them, to add resource to them, has varied very dramatically over the last 10 years. So that's my experience right off the bat.
And probably building more consistency for you now moving forward. I would think that the
Yeah.
work
Oh, yeah.
that
Hang on.
everyone's
Yeah.
done with Pluto in Capricorn is that it may felt like the groups were inconsistent, but this signature is going to be, could add a quality of longer lasting people that really fit your Uranian
That's right.
qualities of being different, and that there's a layer that's accented here too for letting go. And I'm curious how you feel about your experience with this, Julianne, of letting go of guilt and shame for wanting to create change, and that there's a
Wow.
maybe a piece of wanting to change and other people in the group being resistant to that. And how do you navigate what you see as a more divinely guided intellectual way of doing things that hasn't been done before with Aquarius, that the group is not ready for yet, but in 5 days they will be, or in 3 months they will be, or in 10 years. Like, there's that piece of
Whoosh.
Aquarius where what you want to get done is right, but the group is, you're the leader, the group is not quite there
It's not
yet. And
there.
you need to feel comfortable stepping out of the shame connected to being different.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, because it's still something I think, I think I've worked through a lot of that. There absolutely was shame. And I don't think I had the vocabulary to even speak to that process happening, because it was happening very quick. The 11th house can be very quick. It's really like, I can have the structure that I think is right to put in place. And then I think because it's been back and forth over the last few years, Pluto in and out of Aquarius into Capricorn, this whole, it's been a bit blurry. It's been a very, very deep. And so I don't have like, I think I'm just stepping into that now of not even knowing how to make it work, how to like wait the amount of time, but recognizing that that's what was happening. I wasn't failing. And so it really is letting go of the shame. I wasn't failing. I wasn't failing other people. I wasn't failing anyone. It was just,
Say that you're not letting people down. You're not letting
yeah.
people down with this
Well,
signature.
well, I can tell
You're
you
shifting
though,
them.
well, that's a very kind reading of it, because I can tell you I really did feel like I effed up big time in some of my own pursuits, which is fine, right? That's the learning. And that goes then to the fifth house Cancer here, which is like my pride is in my emotional resilience. Like, I really have to trust what's lighting me up, and the like it's very emotional, right? And so if I didn't have these big emotional dips with that big Pluto transit in the 11th, like, or this Capricorn, this destructuring of intelligence even, right? Like, that 11th house is also a personal intelligence. If it's not manifested in an actual group outside of you, it's how your mind works, how you're constantly in negotiation or conversation with like your higher self, the conscious, like the matrix of reality in an algorithmic sense. Like, astrology is also the 11th house. And so like me learning a very clear system of astrology has been a very clear expression, I think, of this, like one that I want to master or rely on, right? Like, Capricorn archetype in really any house is where you already have that structure, and so to deny it would be denying yourself some structure. So even if I think it's been failing, like it's basically what you're saying. There's just, because Capricorn can be very stuck in the past, it's like trying to merge the future with the past. And right now it's just, we are so thick in the middle of like of this shift, but we are on the way. We are on the way out. And it's not even just that someone with this position can do it, it's that they need to, right? It's not like a possibility, it is what's already happening. And so you're either going to be in resistance to it or in flow with it, right? Like, per my quittings, all the things I've quit, I've tried to quit this role so many times, but this is one of those ones where it'll just be like shot back into my brain, and I'm like, okay, like I have to do, like it's just one of those Aquarian insights that comes, and it's just like, it's like being handed the structure from on high, like, here is the framework that you need to push out into the world. Like, please own it. Like, please take responsibility for it.
You're a master at it.
Well,
You've shown
geez,
that many times.
thank you for that. That's nice.
Knowing what needs to be, it's true, and knowing what needs to be tweaked in the group setting to make it efficient, effective, functional, and that's the Capricorn gift. And yet it takes a strong leader and inner authority to step into that leadership role in the group and to redesign how the system functions in the 11th house.
Yeah, beautiful. No, that's so well put. That's so well put.
And I put an element to just resistance to change here. It can be tough to let go of the foundations. And there's a nuance in using what's been done and stepping into the new with Aquarius and Capricorn, that we can't just leap into the new and forget about the foundation altogether yet. And a lot of people need those baby steps when we're working in a group of change. And that brings me back to the patience with Capricorn parts of our charts, is that they are going to feel slow. They're going to feel slower than we're ready to work with, and especially when with this any type of Aquarius energy. If you have Uranus in Capricorn, you're going to feel this all the time. You're going to,
oh my God, that's right. And a lot of people have Uranus in Capricorn. So it's so real. I mean, and that's a really interesting, we haven't even talked about that. Like, I mean, people will have Uranus in many different places who are living now, but some will. So anyway, that's really, this is a really interesting, I think basically everything from the 9th house to the 11th house is very, very interesting to have Capricorn. Just because it's like, you really get into the structural mechanics of it. You're like right before it, you're in it, or you're right past it, but you're nowhere else. Like, because in the 11th house, I keep wanting to not be there anymore. And it's like, haha, you're still there. Like, you can't you can't actually, like, you're just an alien on Earth to a certain extent.
Yeah, anyway, that's a good one. Alien on Earth. And those are how we put things to function in the outer world when we're talking about the 9th, 10th, and 11th house. So everything else is an internal job.
That's right.
To a certain degree. And those are the houses where it's an external job. And as far as Pluto going through that house, I wrote, afraid to break the mold until we feel so confined that we have no choice.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. That's what since 2008 has been. So again, hard to come out of that hangover and know really what just happened, but probably a lot of forced situations to see how skilled you really are at breaking the mold and moving forward in a new way.
Yeah, I mean, and just to say this, if you're Pisces rising with this signature, I mean, it's really hard to even know that you exist sometimes because your immediacy is just like everywhere. There's so much, like right when you're in these latter parts of the zodiac or the latter parts of the houses in your chart, it's just like you're not in charge. Like, your own inner authority will direct you and things will manifest outside of you, but like we're working not just for ourselves, not just with ourselves anymore. And yet Pisces rising is like, I don't even exist. Anyway, I have to figure out how to say that in a better way at another time, but it's why Pisces rising is a wild signature. I'm like, why would anyone be a Pisces rising? Like, why?
Well, and having just gone through Saturn in Pisces, so there's another, and now we're about to get into the 12th house. So I just think what I've been seeing with Pisces people is that there's so much foundational work that was just done with Saturn in Pisces for 3 years, and Pluto, I wasn't even paying attention to Pluto in the 11th house in Capricorn and that piece, but that it's about really getting solid in how you meet the masses and how you structure the massive gift of
Ooh.
Pisces expansion. And Pisces are about to go through even more of that, like Pisces expansiveness. And in order to hold that, this container has been built over the last 3 years. And Pisces have been going through a lot of hard structure work and in a place that's hard to talk about structure. So we can get into the 12th house of
Wow, that's so
Capricorn
beautiful.
and
What
what
a
that
charitable reading you've done. I think it's feel personal to me because I'm in it, but I think this could be true of really any of the places, all of the signs. But anyway, no
Capricorn in
pressure.
the 12th house, Aquarius rising. For many of you, Aquarius rising, but Capricorn in the 12th house is that it's adding structure and making sense of something that has no structure. It doesn't make sense in our physical way. So this is, yeah, genuinely couldn't even write anything down about this archetype because it's it's being able, I mean, the skill is really being able to make the intangible tangible. But there could be
Oof.
a resistance and a block to some of that, even though this is Aquarius rising. So that is part of the Aquarius archetype where it's so unusual. It's unrelatable to people who don't have strong Aquarius placements. It's an unusual ability to channel the divine.
A lot of people also these days have Neptune in Cap, and it's kind of a similar thing. So, okay, the thing that comes to my mind with this signature on its own, Cap in the 12th, is time traveling. Like it's like being able to like really leap and bound. I mean, that's true of an Aquarius, like an Aquarian signature on its own can kind of be this time traveling, but like right, the borders don't exist, right? You can manifest wherever you need to in whatever time you need to, whether that's through your consciousness, through a channeling, through your dream, or through literal reality. Like I don't know anyone who does that personally, but like I wouldn't put it beyond someone to be able to actually like dissipate and manifest into a new body with this signature between Aquarius rising, like, and this is the type of stuff that's real, like out there future, but like, at its best, that's what this looks like to me, right? It's like being able to understand, which is not possible. Okay, you can't understand the 12th house, so it's silly of me to say that, but it's like the closest you're going to get to understanding the mechanics of the all. This is like a master manifester, you could say, someone who is like, you know, when they have also spiritual authority, right? That's and here's the other kicker we're in. Saturn Neptune conjunction balsamic we're in right now. We haven't even touched on that, which I'm glad about because it's a whole freaking thing. But this is the same thing, right? This is a Saturn Neptune archetype, and it's about the boundaries of reality. It's also about the inverse of that, which is the reality of boundarylessness. Like there's so many, like the inverse is just as interesting as the normal. I don't even know what it's the 12th house. I know that you get it
Yeah.
too. It's like it draws you somewhere
It's
else
hard
entirely.
to talk about for some reason. I
Yeah.
find but as guidance, I just to come full circle, I checked a few more celebrities, and here we have Oprah, Michael Jordan, and Jennifer Aniston, to name
Oh,
a few. So
interesting.
Michael Jordan, like I think of that with being able to the way he could dunk shots, right? It was
Just
his
do it. Yeah.
just do it.
I
I mean,
guess
he
that's
could
Nike, but yeah.
step into another reality of using
That's right. Mastery.
his energetic realms
Yep.
into a physical mastery. And Jennifer Aniston as an actress, she just does so many different things and plays so many
Mm-hmm.
different roles that I think of divine into a strong intuitive ability. And then we have Oprah that is so ahead of her time with the way that
Mm-hmm.
she opened up to spiritual topics and bringing that
Interesting.
into people. Reaching the masses is another thing with 12th
Right.
house
Right.
energy as far as ability to connect with people of all different walks of life. I
Right.
mean, that's an intuitive thing where you're tapping
Beautiful.
into the energy of lots of different manifestations of souls and what they
Right.
need to hear. And as an actress, Jennifer Aniston does that too. She broke Instagram when she decided to go on Instagram and she had instantly so many followers that the whole system crashed for a day or two. You can look it
Oh,
up.
I didn't know
It's
that. That's
yeah. And so
cool.
she's someone who is just adored by so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Yet she doesn't come across as particularly Uranian,
That's
but
interesting.
her ability to relate and a lot of people appreciate what she does in the world
Very
is strong. And
interesting.
same with Oprah.
It's so interesting that you're saying this because so the 12th house also like foreign lands, um, Capricorn government structure, diplomat, right? And usually you would get like a Libra thing with a diplomat, and Libra is also kind of celebrity, right? It's this like it's Libra, Venus being the lower active of Neptune, and all of this like possibility, the beauty of Neptune, the what being well liked. But it's interesting because Jennifer Aniston is a little bit less like stereotypical beautiful celebrity. She's very beautiful, but it's more just like your example, like there's a shot, there's like a instant or like all consuming structure, like she commands structure with her with her energetic presence in a way that is beyond like a beauty, right? It's beyond like a normal influence. This is like supernatural influence. This is like a politician, not a politician, like I said, like a diplomat, like a foreign diplomat who's just actually really smart. Like it's not, they're not in it
Yeah.
for like political gain or anything. It's just
Well, we
someone
love
who
her
naturally,
energy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think you really nailed it with that. It's
yeah,
her essence that she expresses, and there's a relatable piece to that,
right.
that she isn't like what you said with stereotypical, what
Mm-hmm.
we put on a pedestal just for the surface. She's an
Right,
energetic expression
right,
that is admired, and
right,
Oprah as well.
right.
There is a godly love that comes from these
Well,
people. Like,
sorry, to speak of God, like this would be a very powerful religious signature too. Someone who finds like religiosity through or connection to the divine, to the all through a structure, through a bounded structure. So someone who is strongly religiously oriented, or just like maybe this is someone who knows that, you know, like the church is not all there is, but that's where they go to find that connection to limitlessness. I mean, it's that earth containment, you know. And so yeah, I don't know, certainly a Jennifer Aniston's just doing that. I don't know if she's religious or anything. Like it's very
and
interesting.
that's
I wonder.
well, she's very spiritual, and that's
Oh
the thing
really?
with, yeah,
Ooh.
and that's the thing
Interesting.
with the Capricorn element is that there's a breaking of that mold to tap into the 12th house expansiveness of spirituality, yet leaning on the structure that works for delivery for these people that are in the public.
Wow. I mean, yeah, master shapeshifter, master
Yeah.
like time traveler, like that's kind of the signature. That's very cool.
Justin Timberlake and Shakira are also on this list. I see a lot of Aquarius in that with the Aquarius rising,
Yeah, I
but
see a lot of Aquarius too.
there's such creativity in the 12th
Yeah.
house that's tapped into, and that
Mm,
is as artists, like they weren't typical artists.
right.
Justin and Shakira, they did kind of tap into a more divinely guided something new that came through the Aquarius first house.
Your job, Capricorn, is in the collective unconscious. And then you are an expression, like an immediate, unique expression of that, right? With the Aquarius first house. Like you exist and it's unique, but that's because your job is to be in the collective unconscious, like creating
Nailing
order,
it.
right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
totally nailing it. Yeah,
that's cool.
that
No,
is your
it's really
job to
cool.
be an expression of God.
Like
And it doesn't look like that. Like Jennifer Aniston,
no,
like you would never look at her like that, but yet
no.
she is just in the she is a
Yeah,
role model for
interesting.
that. And that could be the Capricorn 12th house. Like it almost hides that 12th house connection in Jennifer Aniston has a very classic
That's
representation
right.
of that. Like that's that Capricorn class that can show up. And she's refined, and Oprah too.
That's right.
And yet
That's right. That's right. And it's so interesting. Yeah. The Aquarius thing with
and
her
Pluto,
for friends too is like really, I can say she's had an
but it's a
undeniable
good percent.
influence in the world. And that's very Capricorn 12th, is like structuring. She also is a representation for everyone of the structure of our collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Like she holds that for everyone. You look at her and you're looking at your own collective conscious because she embodies it in her bones. Capricorn 12th.
Yeah. An infinite ability to have authority. There's
Wow.
also like a
Infinite
ease
ability
to
to
that
have
authority.
Oof.
An ease to the authority too. Like it's just Pisces has
Yeah,
flow. The 12th
that's
house has
right.
flow. So you
That's
can
right.
tap into that authority quite
That's right.
effortlessly. And that's maybe maybe that's the allure of Jennifer Aniston is that she's a bit
Yeah,
effortless in her walk through the world, even though she's gone through her own self-conscious things. And Oprah too is pretty public about
that's right.
the things that she feels guilt and shame over. And
Wow.
that's one of the things that can be a subconscious layer in the 12th house
Hmm.
is that Capricorn energy a subconscious thing that comes out and is it there to help bring out those subconscious elements of shame and guilt and bring that into light somehow because the 12th house is light. I think of that with Neptune and that
Yeah.
energetic space.
And like I imagine for all these people having Pluto now, whether by whole sign or porphyry, like cross your ascendant is a really major deal. And so there's a lot been going on behind the scenes for a while now that you're gonna step out and start changing your life. I mean, that Pluto crossing the ascendant is
Yeah.
huge,
It
huge.
is. And that's the thing with the 12th house is the cosmic womb and where the
Mm,
energetic changes and brewing are going on in the background in some ways. And yet maybe not with Capricorn there yet. This is one where we really want to hear from you. Let
that's
me know. Let us know if you have this placement and how you feel about anything that's come up in this particular part that so many astrologers say that 12th house in Pisces is hard to talk about. So this is
Oh,
where we
help
lean
us
on
out
people like
here.
you,
Yeah,
Julianne,
please.
who
Oh, well, I try my best, but it's just you got to talk to all the Saturn and Pisces people, the people who have Saturn and just getting their Saturn return done. It's like, God, help them. Like, anyway, they're great. They're fine, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's weird.
it's a
So
lot.
you tell us that's where
Yeah.
your own personal experience is very helpful because it's subjective. You don't have to create some transpersonal truth to like share on a soapbox. You're just like, no, this is literally what happened to me. And that helps us correlate more data. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to, yeah, I don't know. But yeah,
Just welcome whatever comes out and
yeah,
yeah, form into structure is so challenging, yet it's what we just are born into. Like that is what birth is. It is energy that just is born into structure and yet it's hard to do in the physical world sometimes, or we just do it without thinking. Here's the 12th house blind spot. We do just do it without thinking, and that's Michael Jordan's tag. Just do it.
I see. I don't even know if that's his, right? But it's like he got so
Maybe
much
it's not. Is that
money from
Nike?
Nike.
Yeah,
It's
sorry.
Nike, but didn't he
Yeah,
work with
it was
Nike?
Nike. I
And
think that
like,
was we're gonna have to
I did
that
check
maybe
this,
was a collaboration with
but
them.
still, he got
He
grasp of
did
the
work with
entire
Nike.
collective unconscious. Everyone knows Michael Jordan. Like that's a
Yeah,
huge, massive. Whether it's his or not doesn't matter. The fact that it even came to my mind when you said that, there's an
means they're
association. There's
quote.
a
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So
Well, this has been so fun.